10 o Rhagfyr 2021. We'll go to the agenda. There's quite a big agenda today, so if we can focus the conversation, please, on the reports in hand and the recommendations required, that would be helpful. Thank you for that. So we'll go to the agenda. Apologies. Any apologies? No apologies. Declarations of interest.
Members will be aware of the requirement under the Council's Code of Conduct to declare any personal or prejudicial interest in respect of any business to be considered at today's meeting. Such interest should be declared now, or as soon as the councillor affected becomes aware that they have a personal or prejudicial interest in today's business. All members declaring an interest are required to state clearly what the interest is and to advise whether it's a personal interest or a personal and prejudicial interest as defined in the Code of Conduct. Any member declaring a prejudicial interest is required to leave the chamber for the duration of the business and can take no part in the proceedings. Members with a personal interest only may take part in the debate and any vote. If a personal and prejudicial interest today that has not previously been discussed, the councillor concerned will be required to complete and sign a declaration of interest form, which is available online.
Thank you. Gary, does anybody want to declare an interest at this stage? No? Okay, that's good. Thank you for that. Urgent matters? No urgent matters. Good. Okay, we'll go to agenda 4. The minutes of the meeting held on the 23rd of November. First of all, for accuracy, please, page 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17. For matters arising, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. Okay, thank you. Can someone propose that they're correct, please? I think that's Mark, and seconded by Tony, and everyone's agreement. Okay, thank you for that. We'll go on now to agenda item 5, which is the UK Government Levelling Up Fund bid approval for the Vale of Clwyd constituency. This is the 3rd submission that we have brought forward to Cabinet for consideration, following Clwyd South and Clwyd West. For consistency in terms of the debates here at Cabinet, this is not about, at this stage, it's not about the individual projects, as these have been consulted and discussed locally by members through the MAGs from their local perspective. And I am grateful to local members for all the work they've done on this in their localities to put these projects forward for consideration by officers. From a levelling up fund perspective, Ddinbych were placed into category 1, which qualified the authority for some substantial funding. And if you're minded to support today, that will be a potential £35 million investment in Ddinbych. That funding wasn't really on the table at all in March of this year. So I will show my gratitude to officers at this stage for all the work they've done during the summer and in the autumn. And as this was a new way of working in Ddinbych, we have had to be really clear. Could you just put on mute, please? Yeah, okay. So this is a new way of working for us in Denbighshire. We've had to be clear that the process was robust, understood, with clear timelines in order that officers could proceed with some of the projects which were put forward by you as members for the bids to be put forward. So we were working to tight deadlines, late summer, early autumn. The LUF bid is about an emerging theme, and in the Vale of Clwyd, as 4.11 of the report highlights, this is town centre regeneration and environmental regeneration project. And if this scheme is successful, it will bring significant changes to the Vale of Clwyd, and particularly to the towns in the Vale. We have worked closely with the MP, James Davis, who fully supports the bid, as you can see on page 27, in its entirety, and whilst acknowledging the work that has gone into this and the potential significant impact, positive impact this will have. It is fair to say not all projects put forward were successful, but we have given assurance that officers will work with members and those communities to allocate further funding and to develop those projects to where people would like them to be in their communities. So being the fact that they haven't qualified for Levelling Up Fund does not mean we do not support the projects, but they will be considered in the next line of funding. It's important at this stage as well to say that we continue to work with Welsh Government. The support and funding provided by Welsh Government is really important to us, but in the context of Levelling Up Fund, it's important also that now that we provide confidence to Westminster as well as Welsh Government that we can deliver on funding from both governments. And that's the only way, if that's the way it's going to work, we have to align ourselves to that, because that's the only way that our communities and residents are going to benefit by working with both governments and not playing them against each other and supporting both. So in terms of an overview on the LUF, where we're at, we met with Wrexham this week on the project board alongside the MP to discuss how we move the Clwyd South project forward. That was a positive meeting. And I've spoken to the leader of Conway this week, who assures me he's working up on the project to align Conway and Denbighshire's bid in the constituency of Clwyd West. So progress has been made on the other bids as well. And it's right that it does, because we haven't got much time to deliver on them. So hopefully today, Cabinet members, you'll be able to support this recommendation and move the Vale of Clwyd along to the process of the Levelling Up Fund. So I'll open this up now to questions, please, from Cabinet members first of all. Thank you. Bobby, please.
Just one quick question, a general question, Leader. Is there any more clarity yet on when the bids actually go in?
I think it's around springtime somewhere, or early spring is what we've been told. So in terms of clarity, not clear clarity, no, but we are working to early spring, Bobby.
Okay, thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Similar one, but just obviously when they're approved, how quick will the funding come in? Because obviously it is a tight time frame. So are we having them chats? So rather than just waiting, if we ask the question, because if it gets it after June, it's going to be a struggle for some of the projects. So just clarity, and are we chasing if needed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I might ask Emlyn to come in at this point to provide assurance to members of how we will be responding if this goes in today in terms of what we will be expecting from officers. Emlyn, please.
Yes, brother. Yes, we're certainly in contact with UK government officials already, We've had a recent meeting with them and are continuing with that dialogue, and we've expressed a firm view that obviously we would want confirmation from UK government on the successful bid as soon as possible, and then the funding to follow, because it all has implications, as you say, for the successful delivery of all the projects by March 2024. So we're certainly in regular communication with them, as well with obviously Steve from a finance perspective as well. So diolch.
Okay, Mark, thank you.
Yeah, just to come back just very quickly on that. So obviously it's all positive, but obviously if you lose 6 months and the programme is tight, some of the projects may need to start in good faith. So obviously that's work in progress, but thanks for that.
Yeah, just to add to that, Mark, probably there will be a test and challenge for our officers also to align themselves to deliver these bids as well, if we're successful. So to create that capacity at a local level to deliver them as well, it's probably going to be a priority for us in terms of capital investment. So we would expect officers to help us deliver on this as well. Okay, any other questions? Julian, please.
Thank you very much, Leader. Just first of all to endorse what's been said about the need, and I know officers are doing it, to press on a speedy resolution, A, to whether we're successful, and B, hoping that hopefully that we are, that the funding follows on pretty quickly, seeing as obviously the CLWYD South bid was successful, and that was in the first tranche, and obviously we're still at a stage where funding hasn't been received. Also from our own financial perspective, there's for the Vale of CLWYD, it's we've got a 10% match funding, which is £2 million. Steve will obviously need to know how to allocate that between different financial years. So the earlier we can get that through, the better. And I suppose one of the questions we could use is if there are some pressures on schemes that need to start, we could potentially, I suppose, use some of our match funding, which is our funding, upfront until the UK government funding comes through, assuming we've received that confirmation that it will be coming through. But that will be a matter for Steve, I'm sure, to arrange the best manner appropriate.
Okay, thank you for that, Julian. Brian? Hello, Brian. You did have your hand up, Brian. I don't know where you've gone.
No, he's gone.
Back to you, Brian.
Yeah.
Tony?
Yeah, thank you, Lady. Yeah, there's some really good projects here. I mean, it's great to see it's not just Vale, it's all across the county. So Vale of CLWYD, and we look forward to it. But obviously, there's going to be some big challenges with all the resourcing for this. But we've got the potential for something really good here. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on officers to deliver, but no doubt the team are up to it. Thank you, Leader.
Dear Tony. Okay, Brian, have you come back to us? Okay, we'll come back. So that's it from cabinet members, is it? Okay, I'll go back to other members now. Meirig, please. Meirig, dwi'n meddwl bod ti ar y mute bach na.
Dyna ni. Nes I roi cynnig. Diolch yn fawr, parchus arweinydd. Diolch am yr adroddiad, ac i Emlyn Jones am ei waith yn gyrru mlaen hefo fo. Just o ran gwybodaeth, os yna geisiadau wedi dod o gefn gwlad, dwi'n gwybod bod chi'n deud bod yna rei da wedi dod ymlaen a draws y sir, ond dwi'n gweld dim byd llawer o gefn gwlad wedi dod i mewn. Os yna rhywbeth yn y rwle?
Meirig, oedd o'na ceisiadau wedi dod o ardaloedd cefn gwlad mynd yn ôl i mis Medi, ond dan nhw wedi mynd trwy'r proses a wedi gorffen fyny yn y droddiad yma, mae'n amlwg Felly mae yna ceisiadau wedi dod ymlaen, ond nhw ddim wedi cyrraedd y pwynt yma.
Diolch yn fawr.
Iawn, Eirig. OK. Rhys, please.
Diolch, Mr Cadeirydd. Ga i fod yn blwyfol am foment. Dwi'n edrych ar dudalen 25, ysbyty Ddinbych. Dwi'n cymryd mae'r cyn ysbyty Gogledd Cymru ydy'r sôn amdano yn fan hyn. Yn y golofn costau, mae yna ffigwr o 2.750 o filiynau yn fanno. Oeddwn ni o dan yr argraff bod yr hen growth deal yma hefyd yn rhoi arian tuag at y prosiect yma.
Rhys, ti'n mynd i roed y sgrin I ffwrdd, Rhys?
Oes na ryw faint o overlap yn fan hyn rhwng yr arian sy'n dod o'r growth deal a'r arian sydd wedi glusnodi yn fan hyn, neu ydy arian yn dod o'r ddwy ffynhonnell? Rwy'n ateb y cwestiwn os gwelwch yn dda?
Diolch, Rhys. Na I gofyn wrth Gareth I roed y manylion am y ddwy ffynhonnell gwahanol, un o'r growth bid a un. Maen nhw yn gwahanol, ond na I gofyn wrth Gareth jyst I egluro, jyst I fod yn clir am hynny. Gareth, Roberts, could you just come in, please? OK, Emlyn, wyt ti eisiau dod I fewn ar hwnna? Sut ti'n mynd I egluro'r gwahaniaeth yn y ddau ffynhonnell?
Ie, mi naf, ond dwi'n siŵr iawn, dwi'n meddwl lle bod ni wedi colli Gareth, ond yn sicr o nealltwriaeth I ydy mae'n ddwy ffynhonnell wahanol ar gyfer dau bwrpas wahanol. Mae gennym ni'r arian o'r growth deal sydd dal yn cael ei drafod ar y funud, ond mae hwn hefyd yn wahanol at bwrpas gwahanol. So dwy ffynhonnell wahanol ydy nealltwriaeth I o'r sefyllfa.
Mae'r growth deal, Rhys, I buddsoddi yn y safle, fatha I wneud y safle yn mwy hwylus I adeiladu tai a I helpu tynnu rhai o'r adeiladau I lawr. Mae'r pres yma, mae'n elfen mwy o hwn rwan yn dod ar safle nes at y dre. Dwi'n cofio yn y trafodaeth yn y pwyllgor cynllunio lle o'na wrach risg bod y datblygiad yma yn mynd I fod ar ben ei hun ac yn unigryw ac o'na aelodau lleol wedi sôn am dod o fan nes at y dre, so felly mae elfen o hwn sydd yn mynd at yr actif trafol I trio dod o fan nes at y dre. Dwi'n gwybod di hynny'n mynd help, ond dwi'n siŵr os eith Gareth ddod yn ôl, mae bydd ateb hwnna efo mwy o manylder I ti yn ystod y trafodaeth yma.
Diolch Cadeirydd, mae hwnna'n union yr ateb oedden ni'n disgwyl. Mae rhywbeth I glymu'r safle yn agosach at y dre fasau hyn ac ddim ar y safle. Felly diolch yn fawr iawn am yr ateb.
OK, diolch Rhys. Ac os mae Gareth yn dod yn ôl, rhaid ni gofyn yn ôl os mae o fewn. OK, Brian, are you with us?
Chair?
Yeah.
Sorry, just to add to what's been said on that, from my recollection, part of the funding from the Levelling Up Fund was also to bring forward the works on the properties that we were actually part of the property that we were actually looking to save, rather than it being dependent on coming further into the project when X number of houses have been delivered. So it's to bring forward that enabling development as well, I think, Chair, as well.
Yes. It's not the same, but it's a different avenue which will add to the whole project on that one. Okay, Brian, did you want to come back?
Yeah, sorry, Leader, I lost connection, so I missed a couple of points. So if we can step back then when you were asking cabinet members to speak, I thought it was only right this morning that I did say a few words.
Sorry, Brian, we can't see you.
Obviously, we all need to get behind
Brian, we can't see. Brian, that's going nowhere. Brian, you're going to have to stop. Brian, you're going to have to stop and start again because we can't hear a word you're saying.
Can you hear me now?
Just about, but it's not very good, Brian.
Is that any better?
No. Yeah, try again in a few minutes. Brian.
No. Well, move on. I'll come back in a moment.
Yeah, try again. Okay. Isn't it? Is there someone else? No? Are there no other comments from members?
Right.
No
Is
other
that any-
comments?
Yeah, move on.
Move on. Okay, we heard that, Brian.
Yeah. Well,
We heard the move on.
okay.
But we haven't heard anything else, I'm afraid, Brian. I think the connection is too poor today. Has he gone, is he? Okay. Okay, I'm just looking to the Chief Executive. Anything that you wanted to add, Graham, to the report?
No, thank you, Leader. I think that the report's pretty clear. Questions have been asked and clear answers given. Move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One last chance for Brian. He's gone, has he? Okay, no other comments or questions from anyone on the Levelling Up Fund? No? Okay, I'll come to the recommendations. 3.1, that Cabinet support the theme of the bid, the proposed projects to be included in the bid, and the broad indicative value of each project. 3.2, that Cabinet provides delegated authority to the Chief Executive Officer and Head of Planning, Public Protection and Countryside Service in consultation with a Section 151 officer, Head of Legal, HR and Democratic Services, and the leader to refine the projects and project costs as required, and to agree for a bid to be submitted to UK Government from Ddinbych County Council for the Vale of Clwyd constituency. I'll move that. Is there a seconder, please? Okay, so Mark Young that. Is everybody in agreement? Nobody against? Okay, that's been moved. Thank you all for your support on that one. Okay, we move on to agenda item 6, Denbighshire's Gypsy and Travel Accommodation Assessment 2021. Mark, are you going to start this, please?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And I'll do a small intro, and then I believe Councillor Mellor and then Councillor Timms are coming in. So we all know there's a legal duty under the Housing Act in Wales 2014 for all councils to undertake the new Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment, and an up-to-date Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment is also a requirement for the replacement LDP, which is a critical document for land management in the county. The council is required to submit a new Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment to Welsh Government by February 2022. A project board was established to manage this piece of work, with the leader and myself working together with senior officers to plan the approach. And taking on feedback from Community Scrutiny Committee about the early engagement of members in the process, it was agreed to establish a task and finish group to support this work and ensure compliance with the Welsh Government methodology. It was only with the endorsement of Community Scrutiny Committee that the assessment itself started at the beginning of August through to October this year. The work on the Gypsy and Travel Accommodation Assessment has now concluded and has been reviewed by both Task and Finish Group and a Community Scrutiny Committee. Before I update you on the findings of the report, I'd like to hand over to Councillor Mellor and Graham Timms to report back on the Task and Finish Group work and the committee work. Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Mellor.
Thank you, Mark. As the lead member has said, the Task and Finish Group was set up with an elected member from each member area group to help with this work. The group have met 6 times in total. The group were also able to meet the consultant's ORS and went on to develop a work brief and stakeholder communications and engagement plan, which we were satisfied complied with the Welsh Government methodology. The Task and Finish group also wanted there to be a good communication with elected members and also the travelling community. And local residents also were asked for some additional tasks to be included in the plans. This included an online survey for elected members and city, town and community councils to share their local knowledge with the consultants, and posters to be displayed across our communities. The assessment started at the beginning of August, and we met as a group in September to review the progress. At this stage, we were satisfied that everything was being progressed in line with the work brief and stakeholder communication and engagement plan. Our final meeting was in November, when we received a report on the work that had been done to complete the assessment and the final findings and recommendations. On the basis of the work undertaken, the Task and Finish group were able to report back to Community Scrutiny Committee on the 9th of December that they were satisfied with the delivery of the work brief and stakeholder communication and engagement plan previously endorsed by the Community Scrutiny Committee. They were also satisfied that Welsh Government methodology had been applied appropriately to the analysis of need. And as a group, we felt that a member Task and Finish group worked really well, and we would like to see this approach used again. So I'll pass over to Councillor Graham Timms. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diolch. Community Scrutiny Committee at its last meeting last Thursday, which was the 9th of December, considered the findings and the conclusions of the Task and Finish group, which was established by the committee at its meeting on the 13th of May 2021. Its aim was to support the development of the Gypsy Traveller Accommodation Assessment, which, as you know, is a statutory requirement under the Housing Wales Act 2014. The committee established the Task and Finish group as it was keen to ensure that the council, in developing and delivering the assessment, complied with the Welsh Government's methodology on undertaking these assessments. It also wanted to make sure that in undertaking the assessment, the council would have regard to previous observations made by the Scrutiny Committee in relation to the process. An example would be making every effort to engage with the Gypsy and Traveller community and other stakeholders. In July 2021, Community Scrutiny Committee considered and endorsed the work brief and stakeholder communication and engagement plan, which the Task and Finish group had developed to support the assessment's delivery. At that meeting, it was also satisfied that the approach taken by the group up until that point had been robust, and therefore we endorsed the commencement of the actual assessment process itself. At the meeting on the 9th of December last week, the Task and Finish group presented the committee with its final report. This detailed all of the work carried out by the group, information on various aspects of the work, along with the data and information analysis work they'd undertaken, all of which formed part of their quality assurance of the process followed. Having considered all the information contained in the Task and Finish group's report, along with the answers given to members' questions, Community Scrutiny Committee members were reassured that the process followed and developing and delivering the Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment complied with Welsh Government methodology and addressed all aspects raised previously by scrutiny. The committee wished to place on record its gratitude to the Task and Finish group and its chair, Barry Mellor, for its detailed and diligent work in supporting the delivery of the assessment. I know they had a pretty heavy workload over the summer and early autumn. Committee members agreed with the Task and Finish group's views that the arrangements and processes adopted for delivering the assessment had worked well, and should be considered for use in the future when selecting potential sites for pitches. With the unanimous support of the Community Scrutiny Committee, I wish to advise Cabinet that scrutiny resolved, firstly, to endorse the conclusions of the Task and Finish Group, that A, the work on the Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment had met the requirements of the work brief and stakeholder communication and engagement plan as endorsed by the Committee Scrutiny Committee on the 26th of July, and the Welsh Government methodology had been applied appropriately to the analysis of need. Secondly, to confirm its support for the approach adopted for the delivery of the Denbighshire Gypsy and Travellers Accommodation Assessment as being robust and in line with the Welsh Government guidance. Thirdly, to confirm that it had read, understood and taken account of the wellbeing impact assessment, which came to us as Appendix 3 as part of its considerations. And finally, to recommend to Cabinet that the draft Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment should be approved for submission to Welsh Government. Diolch yn fawr.
Yeah, Graham, can I thank the three of you for that very comprehensive update and recommendations to Cabinet. And I understand, I wasn't there, that the debate in scrutiny was a very clear and concise one, and it was a good debate, and that's picked up by you there, Graham. So I appreciate the work of scrutiny and their recommendations to Cabinet, and also to you, Barry, for the work that you did with the Task and Finish Group. I think Task and Finish Groups have got a role to play within Denbighshire in terms of engaging more members in the decision-making process, and it's been led really well, and that was very clear in terms of holding everybody to account in terms of the expectations of the authority in order to deliver this. So thank you, Barry, and also to you, Mark. When I asked you to lead on this, I think your face did go a little bit pale originally, but we worked together on this through the project board, and we've had quite an awful lot of meetings in order to get this right and give a fair opportunity to all to participate. So thank the three of you for that. So I come back to you, Mark. Do you want to?
Yeah, I just want to do a summary, if that's okay, Leader. So hopefully I've got a bit more colour in me now. So I'd just like to finish off with the GTAA report has identified a need for 8 residential pitches in the county to provide accommodation for 3 families, stroke extended households. The report did not identify a need for a permanent transit site in Denbighshire at this time, but recommends a management approach to encampments. This is due to the combination of factors, including low numbers of encampments, the short-term nature of encampments, and a lack of demand for such facilities. Good practice across the UK shows that a management approach can work well, balancing the needs of travelling communities as well as those local communities. This can be designed to reflect local requirements, and both elected members and members of the travelling community could be engaged in developing how this could work in Denbighshire. And happy to go to officers and then take any questions before recommending.
Thank you for that. Before we come to recommendations and debate, do officers want to add anything to what's been said?
No, I've got Emlyn here. I've got nothing to add. Thank you, Leader. It's been covered in detail. Thank you.
Okay, diolch, Emlyn. Okay, I'll open it up to questions now. Cabinet members, please.
Leader, I'm here. I can't seem to put my hand up for some reason.
Okay, Hill, yes, well, I can't see you, Hill, but I can hear you. Good.
I can see you. Just a question for me. As a cabinet, we accepted this report some time ago when the stance was very clear that there was a need in Denbighshire, and we were quite committed to it at that time. And then now this report is obviously different. So Mark, if you could just explain to members what the shift is and why, just so that everyone's clear on, because when I read this report this time, obviously it gives me different information, and therefore I'm coming to a different conclusion than I did last time. So can you just explain the difference from before and now, please?
Are you referring, Hill, to the transit site?
Yeah, the transit site which was recommended that we needed one, and now we're saying we don't. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Thanks for that, and thanks for the question, Hugh. So obviously we took a new approach which involved task and finish and scrutiny and better engagement with the travelling communities, and also across the UK where they have put in these sites, they're not used. And with communicating with the travelling community, they said they wouldn't use the facility in our authority. And as you would agree, if a certain section of our community weren't going to use the facility, I couldn't endorse that as lead member. And also good practice does show a managed approach is better. So this approach and this assessment this time, we started with a clean piece of paper. So I accept what happened last time, but it doesn't mean that delving into the detail more that we can't change our position, but the change is based on facts and good practice. Thank you, Leader.
Okay, Hill.
Thank you, Mark. That's clear. So just for me to be clear in my mind and for other members, is what we're saying is we're not prepared to invest millions in a site that potentially won't be used. But
Correct.
what we're going prepared to do is continue the management, which would be a far lower cost than that of building a site. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, obviously that's work in progress, and we're already better at it. But it's work in progress, and it'd be for members in the future to work with officers out how that looks. But it's just not a cost. There is a cost to managing it. But you're right. I wouldn't bring to this board a commitment to spending several million if the feedback is these sites aren't used by the travelling communities.
Gary, could you just help with this one,
I think
please?
I need to just remind members that the recommendation of the assessment, which was conducted by independent consultants in accordance with Welsh Government methodology, was that a transit site wasn't required. So I think it's on the basis of the assessment that's been done this time that the recommendation was that no transit site was required. Clearly, an assessment has to be done every 5 years, and circumstances will change, and that's the conclusion that the assessment has reached this time. So I don't think that we should be giving the impression that this is a purely financial consideration, because the assessment didn't say you need one, it said you don't need one.
Yeah. Okay, that's clear.
Sorry, yeah, the Leader, the assessment did say that the travelling community would not use it. So I'm just saying that building a site, an investment, would be a waste of money if they're not going to use it, surely. And that's what I get out of the assessment. So I'm just basing what I'm saying on the assessment.
Well, that could be the impact of responding to the assessment, but the assessment was really clear that there was no need for transit sites on this occasion, but they didn't base that recommendation on the financial implications. That's something that's come out following that assessment. Their advice to us that there wasn't a need for a transit site. And your conclusion here might be one of the elements that comes out of that, but that's not what was in the report. The report was very clear that they were not needed. Okay, yeah, on Hill.
Yeah. Basically, I was trying to add more meat to the bone to support the recommendation. Got lost in translations, man.
No need to do it, Hill. The recommendations are clear. Okay, any other cabinet members' comments? No, cabinet okay with that? Right, I'll move on to members. Peter Scott, please.
Thank you, Leader. I really just want to endorse your statement previously when you thanked everybody. I thought this task and finish group worked really well, and I would really like to see this task and finish group carried on when we looked for pitches and sites on the next stage. Leader, that was all, and I would thank everybody else that worked with that group. It was a very good group. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that was endorsed by scrutiny as well, Peter, wasn't it? So hopefully they will continue when we move on to the next phase. But
Thank you.
Barry, do you want to come back, Barry?
Yes, thanks, Leader. Just to help you out regarding managing of sites, I think we're one step ahead where we've taken on the role of a Egyptian Traveller Liaison Officer now, Rachel. So I think, you know, we will be one step ahead of other counties. And as other counties have said, they have spent lots and lots of money on sites and then found that they've not been used. Just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Okay, any other comments from members? Questions? No, nothing. Okay, the work's been done, I would say, hasn't it, on this one? Okay, Mark, do you want to come back with a recommendation?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. The Cabinet confirms support of the approach adopted for the delivery of the Denbighshire Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment as being robust and in line with Welsh Government guidance. 3.2, that Cabinet approves the draft Traveller and Gypsy Accommodation Assessment 2021 for submission to Welsh Government. 3.3, delegate authority for the lead member, planning, public protection, safer communities and domestic abuse to agree any minor changes required to the Gypsy and Traveller Accommodation Assessment prior to submission to Welsh Government. And 3.4, the Cabinet confirms it has read and understood the taking into account the Wellbeing Impact Assessment Appendix 3 as part of this consideration.
Okay, thank you, Mark. That's been proposed. Is there a seconder for that? Julian, I've seen Julian. Is everybody supporting this? Is there anyone against? No, thank you, Cabinet. That's been moved. Diolch yn fawr i chi. We'll move on to agenda item 7. Welsh and Education Strategic Plan 2022 to 2032. Who, please?
Thank you, Leader. Bore da pawb. I hope you're well. As you know, the Welsh strategic group has been working for many a year, and we've recently issued the consultation on the WESP. So when I refer to it as WESP, it is the Welsh in Education Group. So in case I lose you, if you know what I mean. And we have taken the situation that there's a real challenge within the Welsh language in Wales, and that the government are really focused on getting to a level where we have 1 million Welsh speakers, which is really important. So therefore, we need to work hand in hand, really, with that going forward. So I just want to, before we carry on, I just want to get the message very clearly that achieving the government target of more Welsh speakers in Wales is not purely an educational target. It is a community issue as well. So what we're saying here is the documentation, the report in front of you is talking about what we can do within education, which we can develop over the next, in the schools over the next 10 years. But also, as a council, we have a wider corporate responsibility to develop and evolve the Welsh language throughout the whole of the county. So it is a bigger picture, but this is a small part of what our focus is. So all local authorities, it's statutory for them to have a Welsh Education Strategic Plan. So there's no getting away from that. And the new plan, which is currently out for consultation, which should see us through to 2032. And every new Welsh strategic plan will follow the same guidelines and around 7 outcomes. And these outcomes obviously have to be accepted by Welsh Government, and they must reflect the learner's education journey, and they're consistent with the policy areas of Cymraeg 2050 and Education in Wales, our national mission. So just to focus on the outcomes, so I know we've got Gerrit, I think we've got Gerrit there, who obviously is the lead officer on this. So we'll be looking at achieving more nursery children in Denbighshire. 3-year-olds receive their education through the medium of Welsh. So we're trying to encourage that and increase that. We want more reception classes of children 5-year-olds to receive their education through the medium of Welsh. And that's really important. More children continue to improve their Welsh language skills when transferring from one stage of their statutory education to another. More learners study for assessed qualification in Wales as a subject and subjects through the medium of Welsh. More opportunities for learners to use Welsh in different contexts in schools. Outcome 6 is an increase in the provision of Welsh medium education for pupils with additional learning needs in accordance with the duties imposed by the Additional Learning Needs Act. So what we're saying in that area is we identify that in some areas we're not supporting through the Welsh language and additional learning needs, and we will be pushing to do so more in the future. and increase the number of teaching staff and able to teach Welsh through the medium of Welsh. And what I say that is we have a real challenge. It's a national challenge, recruitment, don't get me wrong, but we need to work locally with the local universities to try and get more people into teaching through the medium of Welsh, and then hopefully form a better relationship with recruitment for our staff going forward in Denbighshire. But also what we have identified in some areas is where we have English medium schools with a high percentage, 90% plus, of Welsh speaking staff in those schools, which could actually deliver Welsh medium education. So we will be working to identify those schools in delivering more education in Welsh for our existing pupils. And maybe the question is, maybe on some people's mind, is why aren't we not building more new Welsh schools? Well, currently in Denbighshire, we have a surplus of Welsh school places. So in some of the counties, neighbouring counties like Wrexham, for example, you'll see in their ambition that they will be building more Welsh schools, well, because they don't have that number of Welsh schools available to them, where we do have surplus places. So I think it's really important that you bear that in mind. So we will put targets in place, and that is really important. We've been set a target by Welsh Government to increase the number of Year 1 pupils receiving Welsh medium education. The lower target for Denbighshire has been set at 37%, and the upper target is 41%. As of 2021, 27% of Year 1 pupils in Denbighshire access Welsh medium education. So, you know, I know it sounds a low target, but actually it's quite ambitious in where we were a few years ago. So it has increased, and we're going to continue to push it. The plan is increasing the capacity of Welsh medium schools, as I said. It's changing the language designation of schools, is a big step. And we will be consulting with all those schools when we do it. We won't be enforcing, so that people just understand, and it will be in partnership. And I think we have consulted with everyone from governing bodies, neighbouring authorities, diocese, SY'N, Welsh Language Commissioner, etc. And the consultation has ended on the 7th, and we are in the middle. It was an 8-week period. We're in the middle of pulling everything together now. And then once we've got the feedback from the consultation, we will then formulate final plans before we submit to Welsh Government, and then hopefully get a decision from them in the new year moving forward. Yeah. So that's a whistle stop, the appendixes and backing up there. That's the start, Leader. I'm happy to take questions. Gareth,
yes, if that's okay. I think the fundamental change with this education strategic plan is the fact that it's a 10-year plan. Historically, because these plans have been coming before cabinets for a number of years now, where there have been 3-year plans, that it is a 10-year plan now. So it's 2022 to 2032, with key milestones along the way, of course, and the fact that Welsh governments have set as a target, set every local authority a target to achieve. Obviously, this is the strategic plan. There is and will be an underlying operational plan that goes into the sort of level of detail that is required to work with all the partners, because it is, as you've previously heard, it is something that we cannot achieve alone. You know, it is working with partners both within the local authority and outside the local authority. But again, you know, it is in line with Welsh Government policy and the current direction to reach that 1 million Welsh speakers by 2050 as well. So yeah, just you know, we're happy to take any comments or questions.
Okay, Gai, diolch i'r ddau ohonoch chi am y cyflwyniad yna. Mae'n jyst ambell cwestiwn gyda i, plis, cyn i ni fynd ymhellach. So mae hwn mynd i fod, yna ymgynghoriad mynd i fod ar hon. Prai mor hyderus ydych chi bod beth sy'n dod allan o'r ymgynghoriad yna mynd i adio at beth ydych chi wedi rhoi efo'r targed o 40%. Ydych chi'n meddwl na dyna bydd y ffigur, neu ar ôl yr ymgynghoriad bydd o'n uwch na hwnna? Neu llai, neu be di'r link rhwng hwnna a'r targed ydych chi wedi gosod? Dyna y cyntaf. Yr ail peth, bydd yna cefnogaeth i rhieni sydd ddim yn siarad Cymraeg. Mae'n greit bod yr ymgylchedd yn yr ysgol yn herio ac yn datblygu'r diwylliant yr iaith Cymraeg o fewn yr ysgol, ond weithiau di'r cefnogaeth ddim yn etu allan i'r ysgol. So be fath o cefnogaeth ydych chi'n meddwl bydd neu i'r rhieni sydd yn di-Gymraeg i helpu plant ar yr agenda yma? A wedyn dwi'n falch bod hwn yn cael ei monitro, a be bydd y peth nesaf bydd ni fel aelodau yn gweld yn y sir i symud y strategaeth yma ymlaen. So 3 cwestiwn gyda fi, please, Huw neu Geraint.
Iawn, diolch Arweinydd. Yn gyntaf, ga i ddweud, ar ran y targed, mae hwnna'n mynd i ddod o gyda Llywodraeth. So, dyn ni'n gweithredu'r targed yna gyda nhw. Dwi'n yn gweld hwnna'n newid. Wyt ti, Ger, dwi'n yn gweld o'n newid oherwydd mae wedi cael ei osod yn barod. So, yr unig peth yn dod yn ôl ar ôl allan efo'r cyhoedd ydy falle bod yna elfen o rhywbeth yn ei newid, ond fel wedi dweud, mae'r gwybodaeth yn cael ei asesu wan a bydd ni'n well lle diwedd y mis yma i wybod be sydd wedi cael ei ddeud yn y ymgynghoriad. Ar rang y cefnogaeth, mae rai fi ddeud, dwi'n meddwl mae yna mach o myth yn hwn hefyd, ydy mae yna andros o lot o gefnogaeth mewn ysgolion, efo'r grŵp rhieni yn yr ysgolion Gymraeg, mae'r rhieni o ysgolion di-Gymraeg. Mae'r ysgol mwyaf Gymraeg sydd gennym ni yn y sir, efo 96% o blant o cartrefi di-Gymraeg, a mae'r cefnogaeth yn enne. Dwi'n meddwl bod ni'n gweld mach o bryder yn ystod cyfnod clo, lle oedd rhai rhieni yn stryglo efo addysg adre, ond dyn ni wedi rhoi canllawiau mewn lle i wneud yn siŵr bod y gefnogaeth yna. Dwi'n meddwl y peth mwyaf sydd angen yma ydy'r marchnata y myth ydy bod yna ddim cefnogaeth. A dyna lle bydd ni yn barod yn gweithio ar hynny ar ran bod ni yn mynd i marchnata fideos a siample o rhieni sydd wedi rhoi plant trwy addysg Gymraeg o teuluoedd di-Gymraeg. Dwi'n meddwl bod rhaid hefyd edrych ar y ganolfan Gymraeg sydd yn Llanelwy sydd wedi cael ei agor, a sut mae hwnna'n mynd i weithio o cradle to grave. So bydd yna gefnogaeth i rhieni, bydd yna gefnogaeth i plant, bydd yna gefnogaeth trochi. Y ffaith bod y ganolfan wedi agor, mae'n mynd i roi step o newid i'r Gymraeg yn y sir, a mae'n mynd i mynd reit ar draws y sir o'r de i'r gogledd, so mae'n rili bwysig bydd ni yn wneud hynny. Sori, y trydydd cwestiwn oedd, be oedd o, bod ni'n monitro yn y sir, be ti'n dweud, sori?
Dwi'n falch bod ni'n monitro, be di'r peth nesaf nhw'n ni fel aelodau gweld efo'r strategaeth yma?
Reit, wel, unwaith mae'r strategaeth wedi mynd at y Llywodraeth, bydd yna fel operational plan mewn ffordd, ydy'r unig ffordd fyswn ni yn disgrifio fo, efo amseroedd o sut dyn ni'n mynd i wneud erbyn pryd a be dyn ni'n mynd i fesur. So hwnna bydd y fesur pren a'r plan yn mynd ymlaen. Ia, Ger, ti eisiau adio rhywbeth, Ger?
Ia, sgai jyst ategu geiriau Huw, o ran y targed Llywodraeth Cymru ydi, dwi'n yn weld o newid o gwbl, ond targed ydi o, nid nenfwd. Felly, os ydyn ni yn llwyddo dros y 10 mlynedd nesaf i fynd yn bell tu hwnt i'r targed, wel dyna fyddwn ni'n drio wneud, lle fyddwn ni ddim yn ar ôl 5 mlynedd yn lleisu dwylag yn dweud, dyn ni wedi cyrraedd yn targed rwan, mae'r job drosodd, lle mi fyddwn ni'n cario ymlaen, felly fyddwn ni'n dal i fynd. O ran rhieni, ia, dwi'n derbyn mae yna ddarn mawr o waith yn edrych marchnata, a marchnata mewn sawl ffordd, marchnata calad a marchnata meddal. A wedyn, dyn ni eisiau wedi gwthio'r cwch i'r dŵr hefo hyn. Dyn ni wedi cael cyfarfodydd efo'r adran gyfathrebu i ddatblygu'r wefan, i ddatblygu gwybodaeth i rieni, a hynna yn waith hefo partneriaid hefyd, menteriaeth, mudiad meithrin ac yn y blaen, ac mae gan pawb le ran i chwarae i gefnogi rhieni ag ysgolion hefyd rhaid ni gofio. O ran beth sy'n digwydd hefo y cam nesaf, mae rhaid i ni anfon y cynllun yma lawr i Gaerdydd yn ystod y flwyddyn newydd erbyn diwedd Ionawr, mi fyddan nhw yn dod yn ôl wedyn yn ei gymeradwyo fo, yn i'w wrthod o, neu yn cynnig awgrymiadau i wella fo neu i'w ddatblygu o. Dyna fydd y cam nesaf. Da ni mewn trafodaethau hefo nhw yn gyson, felly cyn i hynna ddigwydd, mi fyddwn ni wedi bod yn trafod yn helaeth hefo Llywodraeth Cymru ac yn gwybod beth i be. Unwaith fydd o wedi dod yn ôl o Llywodraeth Cymru, wedi'w gymeradwyo, i'w roi i gweithredu ar y cynllun ydy'r cam nesaf am y 10 mlynedd nesaf, ac yn amlwg mi fyddwn ni'n adrodd yn ôl i grŵp strategol y Gymraeg sydd yn cyfarfod i fonitro datblygiadau, felly dyna sy'r cam nesaf. Diolch.
Diolch am atebion yna. Sy'n rhywun arall o cabinet? Neb arall o cabinet, ag iawn. Aelodau? Meirig, please.
Diolch yn fawr, Pachus Arweinydd. Diolch yn fawr am y cyflwyniad agoriadol Saesneg. Ac yn ail, ga i ddiolch i'r pennaeth addu Geraint Davies am anfon copi Cymraeg ar e-bost y bore yma yn lle o'r un Saesneg sydd ynghlwm fel atodiad i'r adroddiad Cymraeg. Diolch yn fawr iawn ti Geraint. Diolch yn fawr. Diolch yn fawr Arweinydd.
Right, I was on mute. OK. Arwel, so ti'n licio dod i fewn?
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Mr Cadeirydd, Arweinydd. Ga i ddiolch am y weledigaeth sydd gennym ni yma drwy Geraint a Hugh. Geraint wedi gweithio'n galed ar hyn efo'i staff. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Chydig o gwestiynau. Beth am y Cymraeg campus? Mae hwnna wedi rhyw fath o ryw, i mi, wedi cael ei anghofio, efallai oherwydd yr haint yma. A y cwestiwn yn Saesneg dwi wedi gael o, dwi ddim wedi gael yn Gymraeg hyd yn hyn, na i ddarllen o Saesneg. The existing Welsh in Education Strategic Group will merge with the Council's Language Forum at the end of 2021 in order to oversee the plan's implementation and evaluation. Pam fod rhaid wneud hyn? Oherwydd mae yr cyfarfod sy'n drafod y Gymraeg allan o addysg yn cael ei anwybyddu, a da ni heb gyfarfod o lawer o weithiau. Ac ysdyn ni hoffi mwy o fanylion pam da chi wedi gwneud hyn. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch Arwel. Hugh neu Geraint, ydych chi eisiau mateb i hwnna, one, please?
O ran Cymraeg campus, dydy o ddim wedi'w anghofio, llai sicrhau. Mae'n ysgolion yn ysgolion cyfrwng Saesneg ni dal wedi ymrwymo i ddatblygu Cymraeg campus ac yn gweithio rwan ar y camau nesaf, mynd o'r wobr efydd i'r arian ac yna yn y pen draw i'r aur, felly falle bod y ffocws falle chydig bach oherwydd pwysau eraill wedi mynd i ffwr', ond yn sicr mae o dal yn rhywbeth sydd ar fwydlen ysgolion ar gyfer ei ddatblygu. O ran yr ail gwestiwn am gyfuno yr grŵp strategol efo'r fforwm iaith sirol, mi nathon ni drafod hyn yn genedlaethol hefo Llywodraeth Cymru, a mi nathon nhw gynnig awgrymiadau o arfer dda cenedlaethol. Da ni sôn o hyd am ddysgu gwersi ac edrych allan yn edrych yn fewnblyg o hyd, lle. A mi nathon nhw gynnig chydig o awdurdodau lle oedden nhw sydd yn eistedd ar bob un o'r cyfarfodydd yma wedi gweld arfer dda ac wedi'w rannu o'n genedlaethol. Mi roedd yna gynlluniau, oedden ni fod i fynd yn mis, dwi'n meddwl mae Chwefror Mawrth 2020 oedd hi jyst cyn y clo cyntaf lle i weld yr arferion da. Mae'n anffodus dwi wedi methu ymweld, ond dyn ni wedi bod yn trafod hefo'r awdurdodau. A'r teimlad oedd bod yn gyffredinol, gan bod ni yn deud nid addysg yn unig sydd am ddatrys hyn, sydd am ddatblygu hyn, bod yr un bobl yn gyffredinol sydd yn eistedd ar partneriaeth ar y grŵp strategol y Gymraeg addysg a'r grŵp sirol, bod yr un bobl yn yr un lle ac yn hytrach na cyfuno'r ddau, be fydd y bwriad fydd fel rhan un yn ffocysu ar yr ochr addysgiadol a rhan 2 o'r cyfarfod yn ffocysu ar waith y fforwm iaith, lle'r partneriaid iaith. Gan mae'r un bobl sydd yna, mi fyddwn ni'n pregethu o'r un bader, a wedyn mi fydd posib i ni gael dull fwy chwedl y Sais joined up o weithredu hyn, nid bod un yn tanseilio'r llall. Y bwriad ydy bod y ddau yn cryfhau i gilydd. Dyna ydy'r bwriad lle, ac mi fydd y cyfarfod cyntaf yn mis Ionawr. Wedyn, dyna di'r bwriad lle, nid tanseilio dim byd, cryfhau y weledigaeth fel bod modd datblygu beth sgynnon ni'n barod o weld arferion da eraill. Huw, dwi'n meddwl sgyn ti.
Diolch Geraint. Ga i ofyn cwestiwn cyn fod Huw'n dod mewn. Pam ydych chi'n penderfynu bod chi gennych chi gadeirydd annibynnol an independent chair?
A hynna eto yn dod o drafodaethau cenedlaethol, achos be oedden nhw'n teimlo bod, ar hyn o bryd yn grŵp strategol y Gymraeg, pennaeth o ysgol sydd yn cadeirio, ac weithiau dwi'n gwybod bod y pennaeth yna hefo barn i ddeud, ac fel cadeirydd mae'n trio gwrando ar farn pawb arall y falle. Mewn awdurdodau lle mae arfer dda wedi'w adnabod yn genedlaethol, mi roedd nhw yn teimlo bod bod cael cadeirydd annibynnol yn ategu at y dull o liwio ac arwain y cyfarfodydd a bod o yn effeithiol tu hwnt. Felly mae rhywbeth da ni, dos yna ddim penodi na yn byd wedi bod eto, lle mae rhywbeth da ni yn edrych arno fo ac yn ystyried o wrando ar leisiau allanol sydd yn deud pa mor effeithiol mae o wedi bod i gael cadeirydd annibynnol sydd yn arwain y grŵp ac yn rhoi cyfle i bawb arall fyneg i'w barn hefyd. Lle. Dyna y meddylfryd tu ôl i hynna.
Oce, dwi'n meddwl yna lle i bach mwy o trafodaeth sy'n ni'n deud ynglyn â'r penderfyniad yna. Dwi'n gwybod bod yn anrhynreidol bod ni yn neud hwnna, Geraint, neu jyst rhywbeth mae cynulliad yn meddwl fwrach ddyle bod ni'n neud.
Ie, dydy o ddim yn angenrheidiol, diolch yn statudol, a mae rhywbeth i bwysau mesur wrth benderfynu dydy.
So fwrach llwn ni cael sgwrs ymlaen efo hwnna ar wel.
Ga i ddod i fewn, os gwelwch hwnna, Cadeirydd, just ar y pwynt yna.
Hyw?
Ie, dwi'n meddwl mae'n sgwrs i gael o gwmpas hynny, ond dwi'n meddwl hefyd, mae'n rhaid ni gofio bod ne lawer o bobl allanol yn eistedd ar y wesp ar y funud, fel Mudiad Meithrin, Menter Iaith, Llywodraeth. So, falle bod cael rhywun yn annibynnol fydd yn mwy o fantais ar ran bod os mae yna benderfyniad yn cael ei wneud gan y grŵp, bod o ddim y cyngor sy'n arwain o, oherwydd bod ni'n gweithio efo gilydd ar y cyd. So mae yna ddwy ochr i'r stori, ond dwi'n meddwl angen mwy o sgwrs, a dwi'n awgrymu bod y sgwrs yn cael ei gael yn y wesp a hefyd yn y bwrdd Cymraeg hefyd.
Iawn, oce, nhw'n ni'n mynd ymhellach ar hwnna rwan. Graham, did you want to come in at this point, please?
Diolch, Leader, if I may. Just listening to the discussion and other discussions I've had with Geraint over the last couple of weeks regarding this. I mean, as has already been said, the need and desire to promote the Welsh language and culture is more than just an educational issue. I think that's clear. And I think we as a council can probably do more to promote the use of Welsh language in our day-to-day business as an organisation with our staff. And actually the council has obviously a role to play in leading and facilitating the promotion of Welsh language and culture in our wider communities as well. And I think we can do more in that regard. And I've listened to this discussion with interest. So we probably need to, I want to get involved in that. I think we can assess our overall corporate approach. And I'm thinking a one council approach. So why education will be involved, but I want all our managers and all our staff to be involved in this, a one council approach, looking at best practice. And as chief exec, it's something I want to get involved in and provide some leadership on as well. So I listened to the debate. I know today is about the Welsh in education, but I think this is taking us into a bigger discussion as well. And I'll want to be involved and provide some leadership in that, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. That's very assuring to see that you want to be more involved in this element of it. And I think you're right. This is Welsh education, a strategic plan, but there is a bigger picture, of course. So take that on board. Okay, diolch am hwnna.
I ddod I fewn ar ôl Graham. Sorry, I ddod I fewn ar ôl Graham. Yeah, Graham, can I welcome, as lead member, can I welcome your comments to the commitment of the Welsh language? Because as members will remember back in the Nova at the start of this council, I did ask if that we could have the Welsh language as a corporate priority. And I think the agreement was given that it would be through the spine of all priorities. But I think given the ambition, Graham, of the target that we have to achieve, I would like to see that I may not be here in the next council, but I suppose as a plea now is that I would love to see that the Welsh language is given its own corporate priority going forward in the next council. So please, that's a plea from me as lead member. Thank you.
Diolch Ew am hwnna. Thank you for the plea. Okay, Gwyneth Ellis, please.
Diolch Arweinydd. Mae gen I ddau gwestiwn, na i fod yn gryno.
Helo Gwyneth, da ni ddim yn clywed ti dda iawn.
Plant 2 oed ar hyn o bryd, mae yna 23% mewn addysg Gymraeg, a phlant 5 oed, mae yna 27% mewn addysg Gymraeg. Ond yn yr targedau, mae'r 2 oedran yna yn mynd i fyny i 32% erbyn 2028. Felly mae hynny'n golygu bod plant 2 oed yn mynd i gynyddu o 7%, ond plant 5 oed dim ond o 5%. Felly os yna ddiffyg uchelgais yna, ta dwi wedi camddallt y ffigurau, hynny ydi, os da ni'n mynd i gynyddu plant 2 oed o hyn a hyn y cant, mi fyswn ni'n gobeithio fysa plant 5 oed yn cynyddu o leia'r un faint felly. A pam bod na ella diffyg uchelgais o ran plant 5 oed. Dyna'r cwestiwn cyntaf. Yr ail gwestiwn wedyn ydy ynglyn â y sylwadau am addysg uwchradd yn ne'r sir ac ysgolion Rhuthun a Llangollen. A pa oblygiadau fydd hynny'n i gael, does na ddim sôn am y plant o'r ardal yma, ardal Corwen a Llandrillo a Chynwyd, sydd ar hyn o bryd yn mynd i'r ysgol uwchradd yn y Bala. A fydd na unrhyw oblygiadau i'r teuluoedd hynny sydd yn draddodiadol yn gyrru plant, mae'r rhieni a mae'r teidiau einia wedi mynd i'r ysgol yn y Bala. Os yna oblygiadau hynny yn dod o'r adroddiad yma, os gwelwch chi na. Diolch yn fawr iawn chi.
Diolch Gwyneth am y cwestiwn. A'n clywed yn dechrau, dwi'n meddwl da ni wedi cael yn ôl at y diwedd. Na i gofyn wrth Geraint os ar y clywed y cwestiynau a dwi'n medru rhaid ymateb I ti, please.
Diolch fawr Gwyneth. Ar y cwestiwn cyntaf, mae Carwyn, mae ar yr alwad, fo sydd wedi bod yn dadansoddi y data ac yn gweithio ar y data. Dwi'n meddwl bod Carwyn medru rhoi esboniad gwell na fi, dwi'n siŵr gan fo sydd wedi byw I ffordd drwy greu y data. Felly Carwyn, oes gen ti ar gyfer y cwestiwn am y data, wedyn ddoi nôl ar y cwestiwn am ysgolion uwchradd a falle?
Yndi, dim problem. Os dwi wedi clywed y cwestiwn yn gywir, a dwi'n ymddiheuro os nad ydw I wedi clywed y cwestiwn yn gywir, ond o safbwynt y gwahaniaeth mewn data oedd cyn ysgol i'r data ym mlwyddyn 5, mae'r ddarpariaeth cyn ysgol yn amrywiol iawn yn y sir, gan gofio nad ydy bob plentyn mewn darpariaeth cyn ysgol, ac felly nid ydyn nhw'n cael cynnwys yn y data. A felly, gan nad ydyn nhw'n yr ysgolion chwaith, dyn ni'n efo rheolaeth dros pa iaith maen nhw'n derbyn yn yr oedran cyn ysgol. O safbwynt
be da ni'n ceisio wneud yn hyn, achos edrych ymlaen ydyn ni'n wneud, ydy trio modelu fel mwyn rai bod y pyramid yn cynyddu yn ei faint yn y gwaelod. Fel bod yna fwy o blant yn bwydo yn ysgolion ni sy'n gallu cael blaen yn y Gymraeg, gan gofio hefyd, mae'n capacity, mae'n limit ar beth i capacity y ddarpariaeth cynysgol hefyd ar hyn o bryd. Ac felly, dwi ddigon hapus i fynd trwy'r data yn fwy manwl gyda chi os ydych chi'n dymuno. Ond dyna pam mae yna wahaniaeth yn y data. Ac dwi'n ymddeol os dwi ddim yn ateb y cwestiwn yn gywir, ond rhan o'r cwestiwn dwi wedi glywed yn anffodus.
Oce, Gwyneth?
Ie, Carwyn, eisiau gwybod o'n i pam bod na fwy o uchelgais o ran 3 oed na 5 oed. Hynny ydi, os uchelgais y plant 3 oed yn cynyddu o 9%, pam nad ydy'r un uchelgais ddim yn cael ei adlewyrchu yn efo plant 5 oed. Hynny ydi, os oes ni'n gwneud hynny, mi fyddwn ni'n gallu bod hyd yn oed yn fwy uchelgeisiol a trio.
Wel, dwi'n meddwl, o ran hynny, beth dwi wedi trio ddangos ydy, mae'n lag yn mynd i fod rhwng, os da ni'n 2028 efo rownd rhyw 11-12% yn addysg Gymraeg cyn ysgol, mae'n mynd i gymryd 2 flynedd yn nhw gyrraedd blwyddyn 1. So maen nhw'n dechrau meithrin wedyn derbyn a wedyn blwyddyn 1. Felly, dylai fod y canran yn cynyddu mewn 2 flynedd ar ei ôl o bob tro. A dyna di'r dull yna. Yn amlwg, mae yna yn hyn o beth, does e ddim dull beth swn i'n galw fo'n berffaith i'w ragweld o. Achos mae o'n ddibynnol yn amlwg ar sut ydyn ni'n gallu cynyddu y ddarpariaeth neu hangach yn yn ysgolion ni. Achos mae yna gyfyngiad capacity amlwg yn y ddarpariaeth ni ar hyn o bryd. Hyn a hyn o lefydd sgynnon ni yn yn ysgolion cyfrwng Gymraeg. A felly, dyna pam yn elfen eraill o gynllun yn mynd i liniaru rei o'r heriau yna yn ystod y cyfnod 10 mlynedd.
Rwynydd, gael dod i fewn. I roi yn syml, Gwyneth, mae digon hawdd i ni flicio switch ar y funud a agor mudiad meithrin newydd yn deud Ysgol Dewi Llanfyrnhyl, bydd ni'n agor un yn y ganolfan yn Llanelwy am siampl. So bydd hwnna yn fyw ac yn gweithio sydd bin. Ond mae rhaid ni fwydo hynny fewn i oed 5. A dyna lle mae'r lag tu ôl, falle rhyw 2-3 mlynedd. So, ond be bydd rhaid ni wneud yn blwyddyn 5 ydy bydd rhaid ni ymgynghori, bydd rhaid ni weithio efo'r ysgol cyn rhoi canllanwyr mewn lle. So mae'r challenge mach mwy o challenge yn yr ardal yna. Ddim bod ni'n fod uchelgeisiol, ydy be fydden ni mewn reality gyrraedd ydy'r cwestiwn. So mae'n hawsach i ni ddod â mudiad meithrin ag agor nhw ydio i newid y pethau mor gyflym yn oed 5 oed.
Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch. Geraint, ti eisiau...
O ran yr ail gwestiwn, o ran teuluodd sydd yn dymuno mynd i ysgol y Berwyn er enghraifft, a mae yna rei yn ne'r sir sy'n dymuno mynd i Morgan Llwyd, felly mae yna gymleth doda fan hyn, ac ydyn ni'n dod mewn i bolisi a derbyniadau gwahanol siroedd a hefyd yr Learn a Travel Measure o ran cludiant a falle. Be mae'r strategaeth yn dweud, da ni'n cydnabod wir, mae hyn yn fater sydd angen cryn sylw lle, a sydd angen peth wmbrath o scrutiny wir i gael dan i groen o fel petai i sicrhau yn bod ni'n gwneud y dewisiadau cywir i ddatblygu'r Gymraeg ym mhob ardal, ond hefyd ar gyfer y rhieni hefyd lle. Felly mae o yn fater cymleth sydd yn croesi ar draws bob math o bolisia a strategaethau eraill, ond mae'r sicrwydd ar addewid yna mae'n rhywbeth mi fyddwn ni yn edrych arno fo yn fanwl iawn, a hefyd yn drafod o hefo ysgolion a drafod o hefo aelodau lleol hefyd, achos mae o'n rhywbeth sydd angen dipyn o sylw.
Oce, diolch am hwnna. Emrys, please.
Ia, Cadeirydd, ar y tegwch i'r cyfieithydd, gael fy holl chi i ofyn i Graham Tim sydd wedi mewn gyntaf, na i ddod i mewn ar ôl Graham.
Oce, iawn Emrys.
I'r cyfieithu cael seibiant bach.
Iawn, okay. Graham Timms, please.
Diolch, Arweinydd. Wasn't expecting that. Thanks for that, Emrys. Very kind. Just coming onto a matter that Hugh very, very briefly touched on, and that is about teacher education, because no matter what plans we do as a county, it all relies on getting a good supply of really good teachers that can speak Welsh in order to be able to teach in the language. And that has been one of the continual challenges in the south of the county, in a school in Ddinbych, to recruit teachers who can teach through both the medium of English and in Welsh. And my question is, I understand it's Welsh Government and that is going to have the main say on this, and teacher training colleges, universities and so on. However, is there anything more that the county can do in its Welsh education plan to stimulate new teachers coming forward and to help them and support them in their learning? Can we go the extra mile? Because without teachers, we're sunk. Diolch.
Thanks, Graham, for that. Geraint?
The quick answer is yes. There is more we can do. Obviously, when we've been talking about, we can't do this in isolation, there's a partnership going on here. It is a partnership with universities as well, because we need to generate more staff who are able to teach the medium of Welsh, coming through the system as well. We have got a partnership ongoing with Bangor University, and it's the Cwrs Sabothol, the sabbatical courses for currently serving teachers who may have some understanding of Welsh, but they want to further develop their Welsh so they can develop it within their schools. And that is very well attended by Ddinbych schools. It's held in our centre in St Asaph, in partnership with, it's run by Bangor University, and we do get quite a few numbers that do attend that every year. So we are building gradually, but that is not the holy grail that's going to solve all the sort of personnel and staffing issues. We do an annual review as well. There's a SWAC, a school workforce annual census, that is held every year, and one of the questions is looking at the linguistic capabilities of staff across the board. So we have got data where we can see where the needs are greater so that we can target, and we also run courses with schools to support them in developing their staff, and also working regionally with the regional service GWASTAD to offer staff the additional support. But this is one of the most challenging outcomes, is the staffing issue and developing the workforce, and it is not something that's going to happen overnight. It is a sort of a longer term, but we are in constant discussions, and obviously there is also a marketing piece of work to be done locally, but also nationally, to drive this sort of beast of an outcome towards a conclusion. So it's really challenging, but we have got irons in the fire, shall we say?
Okay, Graham, did you want to come back on that?
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it also supports the ambitions to provide a future for our young people, doesn't it? An opportunity to work and live through the medium of Welsh. So I'd appreciate whatever you can do on that to stimulate the flow of teachers still.
Thank you. Okay, thanks, Graham. Okay, Emrys, ti'n
Diolch
barod?
yn fawr iawn, Gadeirydd. Dwi wedi datgan diddordeb fel llywodraethwr yn ysgol Benhyfryd ac ysgol Borthyn. Fi'n barod i gymryd cyngor gen Gary efo hynny.
Dwi'n jyst yn sbio ar Gary rwan, os datgan, sy'n rhaid i Emrys datgan diddordeb yn bod o'n llywodraethwr yn...
Wel, fos o'n wneud ddim ni wedi i ddatgan buddiant personol, ond fydd o ddim yn prejudicial.
Dyna fod, fi'n datgan buddiant personol felly, diolch yn fawr.
I'r cynllun ddim yn edrych ar ysgolion.
Wel, mae yna sôn, dwi'n meddwl am ysgol yn hyfryd, oes? Oes, mae yna, oes. Ta waith, dwi'n datgan buddiant personol felly efo hynny. Ga i na ddweud, dwi'n croesawu y weledigaeth yn yr adroddiad sydd yn awyddus, sydd yn dymuno gweld cynnydd sylweddol dros gyfnod yn y niferoedd o siaradwyr Cymraeg erbyn 2032 ac o gobeithio o'i gyrraedd targed 2050 o filiwn o siaradwyr. Ta waith, dwi'n mynd i ganolbwyntio ar rhyw 4 ardal ac sôn ydw i dwi'n mynd i wneud am beth sydd ddim yn yr adroddiad. Os gael dynnu sylw chi yn sydyn at gair hyrwyddo, mae'n digwydd sawl tro yn yr adroddiad y byddwn yn hyrwyddo, a mae'n digwydd bydd y canolfannau trochi, canolfan trochi'n cael ei hyrwyddo ag ati. Da ni angen y manylion, sut fydd y hyrwyddo'n digwydd? Be yn union fydd yn digwydd mwyn sicrhau bod na rieni yn gweld bod yna gyfleoedd i'w plant cael dysgu'r Gymraeg. Wrth iddyn nhw symud i mewn i'r ardal o'r tu allan i Gymru falle, ac ddim ar ymwybyddiaeth bydde gen rhywun arferol o fod yn byw yn y gymuned yn barod. Dyna un cwestiwn gynnau, sut ydyn ni yn mynd i gael yr hwyddo? Dwi'n meddwl bod angen mwy o gig ar yr asgwrn yna. A wedyn, y canolfannau trochi, mae yna un canolfan trochi yn Llanelwy ar hyn o bryd, o beth dwi'n weld. Mae yna gyfeiriad yn yr adroddiad at gael satellites i'r canolfannau hyn. Os newch chi dynnu llinell ddychmygol ar draws y sir efo Ddinbych ar ganol y llinell, mae teithio i Lanelwy'n hawdd o Ddinbych. Dwi'n teithio i Lanelwy o Langollen, neu hyd yn oed o Ruthin, dim cweit mor hawdd. Ac felly mae gofyn i ni weld canolfannau eraill o fewn rhan ddeheuol y sir. Dwi'n meddwl rwan, mae yna 2 ysgol wag yn DYFFRYN Clwyd ac un yn Llandrillo. Dwi'n siŵr iawn beth i statws yr ysgolion yma ar hyn o bryd. Dwi'n meddwl bod nhw'n dal yn berthnasol i Sir Ddinbych. Ond mae yna hefyd lefydd gweigion mewn ysgolion efallai sy'n gallu cartrefu canolfan drochi hefyd. Gofyn ydw i, byddech chi wrth roi gig ar asgwrn yr adroddiad ymwch chi drafod yr adroddiad, byddwch chi'n ystyried lleoliadau ar gyfer trochi, achos mae mor bwysig bod ni yn ennill yr siaradwyr newydd yma mwyn cyfrannu at y miliwn yn y pen draw. Mi eisiau sôn am y continuum y cyfrwng Gymraeg. O'r meithrin i'r gynradd, i'r uwchradd. Does ddim sôn yma am y chweched dosbarth, chydig o sôn sydd am y chweched dosbarth. Os dwi'n byw yn Llanrhaeadr, dwi'n gallu mynd i ysgol Gymraeg mwyaf addas ar fy nghyfer, ac mae yna nifer o bobl yn dewis ysgol Bryn Hyfryd fel yr ysgol honno, a mae yna ysgolion eraill yn dewis, mae'r disgyblion yn dewis ysgol Glan Clwyd. Yn ysgol Glan Clwyd, mi'n gewch chi'r cwpl i fyny at y chweched dosbarth drwy gyfrwng y Gymraeg. Mi fydd hyn yn gobeithio ar gael yn ysgol Bryn Hyfryd o 2022, ond be am tu hwnt i gynodladol 4? Yn 2005, dwi'n meddwl oedd pan oeddwn ni'n swyddog undeb, yna drafodaeth mawr yn genedlaethol am y continuum pan oeddwn tynnu y chweched dosbarth allan o ysgolion ag ati, ac oeddwn ni'n awyddus i weld y continuum cario ymlaen i'r colegau. Dwi'n meddwl bod hynny wedi digwydd gystal ac roedd yr undebau ni obeithio adeg hynny. A dwi'n meddwl dylai bod unrhyw riant sydd yn byw, tawaedd lle maen nhw'n byw, os ydyn nhw'n dymuno i'w plant gael addysg gyfrwng Gymraeg, hyd at cyfnod allweddol 4 a tu hwnt i'r chweched dosbarth, y dylai fod negludiant am ddim i'r rhieni, i'r disgyblion hynny sydd yn dymuno cyrraedd yr ysgolion hynny. Os yw'n bosib, os gwelwch yn dda, i ni gyplysu yr strategaeth hon pen ddaw i yn swyddogol, y bod hi hefyd yn rhan o'r cynllun datblygu lleol. A bod hyn yn cael ystyried wrth i ni drafod codi rhagor o dai newydd ar draws y sir. A mi fydd 'na nifer sylweddol o dai yn cael eu codi dan y cynllun datblygu nesaf, bod hyn yn ystyriaeth wrth i ni ddatblygu'r cynllun datblygu lleol newydd. Dwi'n meddwl mod i wedi cyfeirio at y cwbl sgynna i yma. O, mae'n un arall, mae'n un arall, mae'n ddrwg gen i.
Diolch yn fawr. Gan ei gonwth Geraint ymateb yn gyntaf i hynny.
Mae gen i un ar diwedd os gai.
Ga i ddod yn gyntaf wedyn, ger mopio fynydd yn hawsach yn meddwl.
Oce, Hugh, ti eisiau mynd gyntaf?
Just i ddeud, hwn ydy'r strategaeth. So bydd y cig ar yr asgwrn yn dod yn y ddogfen nesaf, lle bydd ni yn egluro sut bod ni'n mynd i weithredu y cynllun yma. A fel mae Geraint a fi wedi trafod, a dwi'n meddwl bod o'n bwysig wneud y pwynt, ydy bydd ar y funud mae trochi yn digwydd mewn un ysgol. Ysgol Llanllwyd sy'n llwyddiannus iawn yn Llanelwy am y trochi. Be dyn ni'n edrych ar ydy i'w gynnig y trochi yna ar draws y sir. Ond i ddechrau, cyn iddo gynyddu, bydd ni yn gwneud siŵr yn egludiant i'r plant yna ddod i'r ganolfan yn Llanelwy mwyn cael eu trochi. A hefyd, be fydd eithaf chi bydd yn digwydd yn barod yn y flwyddyn nesaf, ydy os mae yna ysgolion sydd efo anghenion Cymraeg yn ei ysgol a bod y pennaeth yn dweud bod mae yna broblem, bydd y staff trochi sydd yn gweithio yn y ganolfan yn gallu mynd allan i'r ysgolion i cefnogi nhw hefyd. So mae o dyfodol Cymraeg mewn ffordd, bydd o yn y fan cyntaf, ond mae hynny tan i'r ddogfen gweithredu cael ei wneud. Ar ran y chweched a continuum, dwi'n meddwl bod dyn ni wedi gweld y shifft o pen ar i'r ysgolion yn muno a gweithredu mewn 3 neu 4 efo'i gilydd i gynnig yn y chweched. Di hwnna ddim wedi gweithio, maen nhw wedi tynnu allan o hynny, a fel ti'n gwybod ysgol Bryn Hyfryd wedi. Ond be dwi yn croesawu ydy bod y pennaeth Bryn Hyfryd wedi cael sgwrs efo fi a deud o 2022 bydd pawb yn cael cyfle, yr un cyfle yn y Gymraeg. A bydden nhw yn Llanllwyd, dwi yn falch iawn o hynny a dwi'n hollol gefnogol o hynny. Ond hefyd dwi'n meddwl bydd effeithiau pen bydd y papur categoraiddio'r ysgolion yma ar ei gwyneth blwtiad ar Llangollen a Bryn Hyfryd. Dwi'n meddwl bydd yn diddorol be wneith ddod allan o'r Llywodraeth yn fanne, sut mae nhw mynd i weithredu yn y dyfodol hefyd. So bydd rhaid ni edrych ar hynny, a dwi'n fawr yn obeithio bod o'n dod lawr yn llaw efo unrhyw newid i'r cludiant. Cos os dwi'n iawn ger, ni di'r unig sir rwan ar ôl yn y gogledd sydd dal i dalu am cludiant i'r chweched. So mae hwnna'n pwysig i gofio bod plant Sir Ddinbych mewn lle da i gymaru a siroedd eraill dros gogledd Cymru. So, roughly, ti'n neud fi weithio bore yma, Emrys, ond dwi'n gobeithio dwi wedi cyfro'r rhan fwyaf, ond as ever, wneith Geraint dod i fewn a mopio fyny, dwi'n meddwl.
Ie, diolch fawr. Sy'n dweud, mae'r gair hyrwyddo, fel nathoch chi sôn, yn y cynllun, blys drablwyth drwyddo fo i gyd, achos hyrwyddo ydyn ni, allwn ni ddim gorfodi, achos dewis rhiant ydy o'n y diwedd, a fel ddudodd yr aelod arweiniol, ydy mae yna, a dyn ni wedi cychwyn hyn yn barod, yr cynllun marchnata sydd mynd i fynd law yn llaw mwyn yr hyrwyddo yma, a nid jyst marchnata ar-lein, ond marchnata fwy gweledol a fwy calad hefyd mwyn hyrwyddo hefo ysgolion a partneriaid i gyd. O ran y ganolfan drochi, dyn ni yn cydnabod yn y cynllun, dyn ni yn cydnabod yr angen i edrych ar ddichonolrwydd darpariaeth drochi yn ne'r sir, achos dwi'n cydnabod mae'n bell o Llangollen i gyrraedd Llanelwy at 9 gloch bora i blentyn 5, 6, 7 oed. Felly mae o yn y ddogfen yn bod ni yn edrych ar greu arolwg dichanolrwydd o hynna. O ran y mater hefo hefo'r ysgolion uwchradd a'r continuum iaith, mae yr ddogfen statudol ar categoreiddio newydd ysgolion yn ôl y DWYFFRyn i gael ei chyhoeddi cyndolig. A wneithi, yn fater arall, dwi ddim yn siŵr lle, ond i fydd yn newydd ar yr ysgolion sydd am greu mwy o waith trafod yn bod yna, a mwy o benderfyniadau.
Geraint, wyt ti'n mynd i'r gwyn i ffwrdd, please? O'n i'n clywed...
Sorry. Sorry.
Iawn, Geraint, wyt ti di ymateb? O, Geraint. Reit, Emrys, o gen ti un cwestiwn?
Oes, mae gen i'n arall, oes, a un sylw hefyd.
Cwestiwn bychan, Emrys?
Ie, wel, mae'n eitha bychan. Reit, i fod yn onest, mae Huw di rhyw gyfeiriad sefon sydyn bod yna bosibiliadau Huw neu Geraint, a ti'n cofio rwan, bod yna bosibiliadau o ddefnyddio athrawon i gynorthwyo. Da ni wedi colli'n tîm o athrawon Bro. Dwi wedi dod â hyn i fyny yn y Pwyllgor Strategaeth Addysg Gymraeg sawl tro. Da ni wedi colli'n tîm o athrawon Bro. Da ni lawr i un person. Gwaith caled iawn i un person. Dwi'n annog, os gwelwch yn dda, i gyplysu ar cynllun sabothol sydd mor llwyddiannus. Dwi'n gwybod amdano fo, mae'n wraig yn hyn wedi bod drwyddo fan y gorffennol, a mae mor werthfawr i roi hyder i athrawon. Ond chi'n rwy'n meddwl rhaid dosbarth, mae'n hyfryd bod nhw'n gallu troi at dîm o bobl wedyn sydd yn gallu dod i mewn a hyrwyddo. Dwi'n apelio, os gwelwch yn dda, neith'r y sir ystyried ailgyflwyno athrawon Bro fel tîm, fel oedd yn y gorffennol. Tan y gymarol ddiweddar, achos mi roedden nhw'n gwneud gwaith bendigedig ac mi roedd yna ganlyniadau gwych i weld yn yr ysgolion cynradd ni ar hyn o bryd. Fi'n meddwl bydden nhw'n cyplysu gilydd yn dda neu. Mae gen i un sylw arall, ond neu gadw hwnnw. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Emrys. Dwi'n meddwl fel mae'r strategaeth yn datblygu a mae'r pwysau i symud ymlaen, fwrach bydd rhaid ail-edrych ar adnoddau i symud hwn ymlaen, Emrys, a fwrach bydd hwnna'n un o'r pethau bydd rhaid ystyried. Ond dwi'n gwybod os yna cynlluniau tymor byr i hwnna neu ddim. Dwi'n sbio i Huw neu Geraint i mateb.
Gai ddod i fewn, jyst i fod yn glir, y ffordd mae Emrys yn neud o swnio, fel bod ni wedi cael gwared yr athrawon Bro, a ni ddim wedi buddsoddi yn y Gymraeg. Y penderfyniad oherwydd o ddim ond un athrawon Bro ydy bod y pres oedd yn talu amdano nhw wedi cael ei buddsoddi yn yr ysgolion a dewis yr ysgolion oedd hybu'r Gymraeg efo'r buddsoddiad yn yr ysgolion. So, be oedd y mewnbwn gyn y peniaethyd oedd well gyda nhw darparu y cefnogaeth Gymraeg a talu amdano ei hunain yn yr ysgolion yn lle bod ne athrawon Bro yn dropio fewn ag allan, a mae hwn wedi bod mewn lle am blynyddoedd. Cyn amser fi fel arweinydd ar y Gymraeg yn y sir. A pob tro dyn ni wedi ail edrych ar hwn, mae'r penaethiad yn gefnogol iawn o'r fformula yma a maen nhw eisiau cytuno efo fo. Mae yna adnoddau ychwanegol, fel dwi wedi sôn amdano trochi yn gyntaf ag yn yr ysgolion, bydd hwnna yn cynyddu, ond unwaith bod yr cynllun wedi cael ei bwysau a mesur a be y bysoddiad bydd angen, byddwn ni'n dod yn ôl i'r sir neu'r arweinydd ar y Gymraeg ar yr adeg i weld be di'r bysoddiad sydd angen i ddatparu i wneud yn siŵr bod ni'n cyrraedd yn target. So mae'r challenge yn enfawr, ond mae yna lot o waith i wneud ar bapur cyn bod ni yn pwysio ymlaen efo hwn.
Oce, diolch Huw. Dim mwy o cwestiynau, os dwi'n gweld? Na. Gael jyst dweud bod hwn yn pwnc ofnadwy o diddorol, ond hefyd yn ofnadwy o pwysig, a mae'n mwy eang dim ond na dim ond addysg fel oedd y Prifeithredwr yn ychwanegu i'r trafodaeth y fanna. Gai gofyn Huw os bysau ti'n ystyried cael gweithio i'r cynghorydd, os ti ddim yn y cyngor yma, allwn ni rhaid yn y cynllun blaenorol i rhaid fel gweithio i'r cyngor nesaf, a bod mae yna lot o sylwadau sydd wedi cael eu codi heddiw, dyn nhw'n wastad ateb hawdd iddyn nhw na gwes. A dyn ni'n mynd i cael yr ateb hawdd tan dyn ni gan gwell dealltwriaeth o be mae'r strategaeth yn edrych fel. So, sut ti'n ystyried rhaid yn y cynllun blaenorol i rhaid fel gweithdy'r cynghorydd ni neu'r cynghorydd newydd yn y cyngor nesaf, please?
Sori, ar ti dorri fyny Huw, be ti eisiau fi roi fewn, sori?
Just gofyn os ti'n ystyried i hwn fod yn y gweithdy'r cynghorydd yn y cyngor nesaf neu ar diwedd y cyngor...
Ie, ddim problem o gwbl, na, mae hwnna'n digon teg, ie. A dwi'n meddwl o Huw, bydd rhaid o fod yn y cyngor nesaf, bys ni'n tyfio, oherwydd dwi'n meddwl bod o mwy o weithdy efo'r cig ar yr asgwrn fel oedd Emrys yn dweud, i pobl cael dall. Mae'n iawn cael y goals, ond dyn ni eisiau how we do it yn de. Dyna beth dwi'n meddwl sy'n bwysig i gynghorwyr gael trafod hynny, dwi'n meddwl.
No, na i gadael hwnna i ti pryd di'r amser i hwnna, ond pan mae'r strategaeth yn dod yn mwy clir, dwi'n meddwl bod eisiau trafodaeth mewnol fel i'r cynghorydd cael well dealltwriaeth o beth sy'n mynd ymlaen efo fo, os yna'n iawn. Oce, diolch Ew, lle di ddod at yr amgymhellion, please?
Gadeirydd.
Dwi'n meddwl bod Emrys eisiau dod nôl Huw, dwi'n meddwl.
Emrys?
Ia, sori, dwi'n eisiau cywiro ar hyn mae cynghorydd Huw Hildys Roberts newydd dweud. Dwi ddim wedi sôn am gael gwared, dwi ddim wedi sôn am dorri costau, dwi wedi sôn am golli tîm o Thrawon Bro. Os gwelwch yna, mae gael gwared a torri costau, maen nhw'n gallu bod yn eiriau emosiynol, nac wedyn ddim o'r fath beth. Wedi colli tîm o Thrawon Bro, gofyn am canon nôl dwi. Sym yna hynny, diolch.
Oce, diolch Emrys. Ti jyst iawn di cael y llais olaf yna, na i gadael hwnna i Huw wan i ddod at yr amgymhellion, please. Huw.
Iawn, diolch yn fawr, a diolch i chi gyd am y drafodaeth wedi bod yn diddorol. Recommendations, dwi'n ymddiheuro Mr Meirig Davies, y papur Saesneg gyda'i ymlaen i'r efnyn mewn gyda'i. To approve the submission of the plan to Welsh Government by the 31st of January, ensuring compliance with the requirements to create a new 10-year Welsh in education strategic plan.
Diolch, hwnna wedi cael ei pasio gen Huw. So rwy'n yn eilio hwnna o'r cabinet? Na eilio fo. Sy'n pawb yn cydweld efo hwn? Neb yn erbyn? Oce, mae hwnna wedi pasio. Diolch ti Huw. Oce, gwneud 10 munud o doriad wan, dwi'n meddwl ar ôl hwnna. Nw'n i ddod yn ôl 10 munud i hanner. Diolch i chi. All cabinet members refreshed and ready to go, second half? Yeah. Okay, I don't think Brian is with us for agenda item 8, is he?
Hugh, do you want me?
He's asked me to take it over if that's okay, Leader.
Okay, we'll have a collective approach to this. Thanks, Tony. Between Tony, Julian, and a little bit myself, we'll get it through and land it in Dave Laurie's lap, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Are you with us, Dave?
I am, yes.
Good, thank goodness for that. Okay, agenda item 8, proposed minimum standard for Denbighshire County Council, non-domestic new build and major extension refurbishment construction projects, which includes targets for in-use and embodied carbon. And this is one of the, I was going to say something we have had to react, but something we have got to do differently as a consequence of our climate change agenda and our targets for carbon emissions, and for us to understand the how the implementation of new projects has to work from now on, following our statements on emergency. So that's the basic of the reports. I'll pass it on to you now, Tony, and then ask Julian to come in after if need be. Tony?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah. So due to Brian's lack of connectivity, just the report, just briefly, it sets out the proposed minimum standard to which all Denbighshire County Council non-domestic new build and major extension stroke refurbishment construction projects must adhere to, which includes targets for in-use and embodied carbon. That's the intro. So Julian, did you want to add anything before we go to Dave?
Yeah, thanks, Tony. Just a few points to make. This obviously is one of the planks within our attempts to achieve our carbon zero by 2030 agenda, following on from the climate change emergency declaration. We have been, generally speaking, trying to put quite an effort into improving our existing building stock. And the proposals in this paper would be to utilise the UK Green Building Council definitions to take us forward on those projects which are ahead of us. There's in the appendices there is an indicative timeline as to how we would phase in and what type of properties we would intend utilising for that, but it would be very much an incremental approach because clearly there are some schemes that are already on the pathway and we wouldn't be able to accommodate those at the moment. There can be no doubt that if we take a whole of life costing for these projects, that taking this forward in this manner will deliver savings in the long term in terms of improved running costs, improved maintenance costs, and of course improvements to our environmental impact. Clearly, though, there is an increase in the upfront capital costs resulting from that. And again, you'll see some indicative examples in some of the appendices where it's approximately around about a 20% uplift that we're anticipating in those costs. Whilst it should be said that Welsh Government have made a recent announcement about school buildings, it will probably be only a short matter of time before they make similar announcements about all of their funded schemes. And clearly, it's always more costly to retrofit a building than to actually do it from the commencement. So it makes sense for us to get this implemented as soon as we can. We need to take advantage of any and all pilot funding that's available from Welsh Government, but I think we do have to accept that eventually the cost of doing this initially will fall on the authority. So we just need to make sure that when we're planning for projects in the future, that we make sure that we're accommodating the full costings for this. But I would certainly endorse and support the recommendations within the report. I will hand over to either Dave or Alan if they want to add anything to that. Otherwise, I'm sure we'll go to any questions members may have.
Okay, can I thank you both for that introduction. Before I come to the officers, I'd just like to add to that we're all familiar with the risks of not doing this. Probably we should be asking for more detailed information about the risks of doing it in terms of increased costs, which you alluded to there, Julian, which could be quite substantial, but there's a long-term gain we're familiar with. And also the second bullet point of staff resource to deliver this agenda as it becomes more of the norm in terms of our working ways. So if Alan or Dave could cover those two in their responses as well, please. Okay, is it Alan or Dave who's going to come in?
I think Dave will pick up the detail. I'll certainly back him up if he needs anything.
Okay.
Leader.
Good leading from the front there, Alan.
Dave Lowry, please.
Yep. Okay. Yes. Thanks for that introduction. I think Julian hit most of the salient points. To be honest with you, yes, it's something. It's part of our decarbonisation agenda. It's something we have to do if we're going to be net zero carbon. There's no point in us building new buildings now that are going to give us a problem later. Yes, there is an anticipated additional cost. This has been based on an uplift in construction cost, which again is based on some Welsh Government, not so much guidance, but figures that they put out for pilot schemes within education, which stated an anticipated increase of build cost of £350 per square metre. I think on top of that, we've also anticipated that there will be additional costs for professional consultants, because we are now intending to measure embodied carbon, so how much carbon a building material has taken to produce. We're anticipating that, and not just measuring it, I must say, but monitoring how we're anticipating that we'll hit the target of 800 kilograms of carbon per meter squared of embodied carbon in the materials. That is not a whole new, but certainly a variation on the sort of QS role, where instead of measuring how much a material costs in monetary terms, we're going to be measuring it in terms of what it costs in carbon. And that really, the design and construction team have put together some anticipated increases in professional fee costs, and that whole then has been put forward as it's actually 19%, but as Julian said, it's circa 20%, I think, 1% between friends. So yeah, it is an anticipated cost. I think with any construction project, it's quite difficult to try and anticipate what exact costs are going to be, even when you have an idea what the building is, where it is, how big it's going to be, that sort of thing. We're always trying to anticipate increased costs in terms of new regulation, which I think, as Julian said, this measure or measures like it will become in the very near future. I think this will become the norm. Other regulations, material costs, labour costs. So I think there's always a risk, I think, when we're anticipating the cost of buildings. But I think this is something that as an authority we do particularly well, as an industry that we do quite well in terms of monitoring costs through QSs, through the 3 stages we have for client sign-off. So yeah, I think there is a risk. There's a risk that we may have underestimated. There's a risk that we may have overestimated, but it's certainly something that we can manage within that process. So yeah, I'll be quiet now.
Okay.
Sorry, was there another point, Leader, that you made? Not so much. Oh, resources was the other point.
Resource, yes.
And again, yes, I think resource in terms of expertise may be an issue going forward. The whole decarbonisation agenda is something that is gathering, well, not so much gathering pace. I think it's hit us with pace. But again, I think that's something that we will manage through the skill sets we already have in-house, the skill sets we have in our consultants. And we're already finding that both consultants and contractors and our own staff are responding quite well to this. And we found that through some of the retrofit programs that we're doing. So again, it's always a risk, but I think it's something that we can manage. And I think the other side of that is it's a real opportunity in terms of growing knowledge, skills, and jobs, really.
Okay, thank you, Dave, for that answer. Questions from cabinet members?
Sorry, Leader, can I just follow up with that? Would you mind?
Yes, Alan.
Thank you. Just to say, Dave, as an expert in this field, has focused on the technical details, which I think you'll find very reassuring. And I think it's great to hear that that pragmatic attitude to this. But I think it's also worth saying that this is a big step for the council, but it's a great step forward. And Dave says, I think it just means we're going to be slightly ahead of the curve with this, with all the advantages that brings in terms of and so on. And it reflects very much our commitment to climate change and actually doing something about it. You know, this is a really important change, and I think it's one that, as members, we should be proud of, that we're even considering doing this sort of thing, because it's exactly what everybody will have to do. But we're in a sense will be leading the way in Wales with this, so it's really very, very positive, reputationally and in practical sense. And Dave's right. You know, industry is gearing up very quickly to working in this way. we will be doing that too. And in terms of the climate change programme, we've identified it as an area of growth for us in terms of green skills, the skills to build like this and so on. So Dave's right, we'll be ahead of the game for that. But I think it's something that as a council we should be proud of, that we're taking a lead in this and actually showing others how it can be done. So
thank you for that.
That's the other side of it, Leader.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Yeah, thank you for that. Okay, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'll just drop my hand. So obviously this is positive, and it's just been said we're going to be one of the first taking this approach. Just a couple of statements and questions. So Dave, when we say 20% extra cost, does that include the material increase, or is that just the cost of being greener? But I do want to make the point that when you build contaminated land, bad land is a risk. So to me, it's just another risk. So you'll win some, you'll lose some. But can you just talk on the 20%? Is that just to go greener, or is it materials? And I'd like to make the point, if you read all the guidance on this, that 20% is going to come down as we all start doing it more, and the cost comes down, you get volume. And then one for Alan, staff is down as a risk, but I think if we're the first, we're green, we're exciting to work for, I hope people want to work for us, Alan. So I think that's a positive.
Mark, could you just switch your screen off, please? It
Yeah,
wasn't.
sorry, yeah, okay. What bit did you miss, sorry?
Just the last couple of sentences.
Yeah, so the 20%, is that materials, or is that just to go greener? I make the point that that will come down as we get volume and everyone starts building like this. Alan, on the staff, it is a risk that we haven't got the skills, but I think if we're the first and we're the greenest, it's exciting and people will want to work for Denbighshire. So I think that's a positive for us. And lastly, any feedback off developers on this approach? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Dave?
Yeah, firstly, I think you're right. The cost will come down as volume increases via demand. The 20%, that's an increased cost which encompasses materials, labour, design, professional fees, but just for for meeting the enhanced standard. So it's not a generalisation in terms of material costs generally. And I think the other point you made on the resources is you're right. Certainly our internal staff are very keen and very excited to drive this agenda. I think in some ways they sort of feel that the shackles have been taken off a little bit, which is a good thing. And again, industry, yes, we're obviously dealing with contractors, consultants, and again, the response is very positive. I think everyone agrees and recognises that this is the way forward. And like I say, I think it's been introduced very quickly. I think the industry is responding as quickly as it can, certainly, and more importantly, I think not so much responding as quickly as it can, but with enthusiasm.
Okay, thank you, Dave, for that. Any other questions? Mark, do you want to come back on that? Are you okay with that?
If I can just come back, I mean, I'll be supporting this, and I'm very proud of having that debate. It means we're in front and we mean it, and it's exciting. And as I say, as a cabinet member, I'm proud that we're debating it today. It's fantastic.
Can I just respond as well, please, Leader? Would you mind? Just
Yes.
on the 20%, it is within the paper, but it might not be obvious, is that it's essentially an increase in upfront costs, and that whole life costing is not more expensive. So we don't anticipate, it's a question of putting more money in at the beginning rather than money which is lost. And in terms of skills, Mark should be reassured. We're doing some work on another project. Some of you will be familiar with the archive project. We've recently had some work done by a private company on that particular project, and they've been able to work. They had the expertise to work in terms of net carbon zero, but also passive house standards. So that's an expertise definitely is growing and developing in private industry as well as within our own organisation. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, Graham, would you like to come in now, please?
Thank you, Leader Dale. Just a brief comment. I mean, we talk about additional costs now, because this is something new. But I guess in a couple of years' time, we won't be talking about additional costs. This will just be the way that we actually need to do things. And then we won't be talking about additional costs. It will just be the things that we deliver in the way that we've been delivering things in the past, and we haven't talked about additional costs. It's only because it's new, but ultimately we've got to do it. It's and we won't be considering additional costs. It's the right thing to do. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Graham, for that. Any questions from cabinet members?
There was one outstanding question. I just said, any feedback off developers who do this sort of work for us? David, please.
Dave?
Sorry, yeah. Not so much feedback. I think where we are with the new build programs, I think it is just that acceptance and enthusiasm. And obviously, as developers and builders, they see the opportunities as much as we do.
And I think, Chair, if I can just add, we do have a very good relationship with our contractors and locally through the work that we've been doing over the past several years with the North Wales Construction Framework, which we operate on behalf of North Wales authorities. So I think it's building upon a structure and a relationship that's already there.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Thank you, Julian. Any questions from cabinet members? No. Okay. Meirig, please.
Diolch yn fawr eto, parchus arweinydd. Dau gwestiwn os gai. A yw'r adeiladau rhestredig wedi heithrio? Ydy'r rhaid ni gyd yn ffurfio neu gwneud ydyn ni am bod o'n beth da i wneud ynglyn â carbon? Meddwl am Nant Clwyd y Dre oeddwn ni, dwi'n gweld bod yn y rhestr. Yr ail gwestiwn, cyfeirio at defnyddiau a'r carbon sydd yn cael ei gynhyrchu trwy eu cyflwyno neu nôl nhw. Cymera na fydd archebu defnyddiau o 200 milltir neu fwy i ffwrdd ei bod yn rhatach nac defnyddiau lleol sydd yn cael ei gwneud ac y gost yn uwch wrth reswm am bod chi'n prynu'n lleol. A dyna, o'n i'n gwrando ar y Prif Weithredwr yn siarad, a fydd yna ddim cost, ond os ydych chi'n prynu'n lleol a mae o gael yn rhatach, dedwch yn Llundain, gwaith beth bynnag fydd o, dwi'n cymryd mai prynu'n lleol fyddwn ni o hyn ymlaen a ddim o bellter byd. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Meirig. Dave, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the materials, we always try and buy locally anyway. I think with the embodied carbon, I think not that a lot will depend, but a lot of consideration has to be given to how much embodied carbon is within that material, and how local better options are. I mean, the obvious thing is timber. You know, you'd like to build with as much timber as you can. The availability of that locally is something that may not suit the volumes that we require, but I think again, it's promoting those opportunities for those particular materials to be produced locally. So it's a bit like when you mentioned, you know, it may be cheaper to buy something from further away. In monetary terms, it might be better for us to get certain materials from further away because there is less embodied carbon. And I appreciate there's a balance to be had around the transport costs, but that's it's a bit of a change of mindset, really, moving away from monetary cost and looking more at carbon cost. And the other question was around, sorry, it slipped my mind.
Should you just mynd nôl at y cwestiwn arall, Meirig?
Yeah, listed buildings.
Oh, yes.
David.
The buildings that are provided in the appendix, they're projects that are in the pipeline now. It will depend largely where they are. What we've said is that we would like to apply this standard to anything that is in RIBA stage 3. So that's spatial design. We haven't quite hit the detailed technical design yet. I think in fairness, when we've been talking about this with services, we have to accept that there may be some of those projects that we have to take a bit of a pragmatic approach with, because it may be on the cusp of moving into stage 4, or it may be that stage 3 means that costs have been developed a little bit further based on our standard approach now. But that will be project specific. I think in terms of some of the buildings that we're looking at, there may be technical issues that mean we just simply can't do what we want to do. But that shouldn't detract from the fact that we want to do it and we will do what we can to achieve it.
Okay,
Diolch yn fawr.
Yeah. Just the ychwanegu at y cwestiwn cyntaf yna, dwi yn meddwl yn yr agenda yma bod yr gair bod yn lleol yn ofnadwy o pwysig, a mae rhywbeth bydd rhaid ni cymryd y cyfle i datblygu dros y blynyddoedd nesaf i delio efo'r newid hinsawdd yr agenda hynny hefyd. A dwi'n meddwl mae yna cyfleoedd mawr o fama i cwmnïau lleol addasu i wneud hwn. Felly mae yna cyfleoedd mawr yn dod allan o hon, so dwi yn cytuno efo'r cwestiwn cyntaf yna, Meirig, a diolch amdano fo.
Wel, diolch i ti Arweinydd, achos be o'n i'n meddwl am oedd, ys ti'n mynd am lechi newydd i wneud rhyw waith, maen nhw'n rhatach o lawer o China, ac o Sbaen, na gydyn nhw o chwareli Gwynedd, a sydd yn drist iawn, dweud y gwir.
Yndi. Diolch yn fawr. Okay, are there any other questions? No more questions? Okay, I'll just go through the recommendations then. 3.1, that Cabinet agree to the adoption and implementation of a DCC construction standard for non-domestic new build and major extension, refurbishments, construction projects to meet in use and embodied carbon targets. 3.2, that the implementation of this standard must be done in a way that is compatible to the Council's ecologically positive by 2030 goal. And 3.3, that the committee confirms that it has read, understood, and taken account of the Wellbeing Impact Assessment Appendix 1 as part of its consideration. Could someone move that, please?
Yeah, I'll move that.
Julian's moved that. Tony seconded it. Everybody happy? Nobody's against that, are they? Okay, thank you for that. Right, we'll come to agenda item 9, the establishment of the North Wales Corporate Joint Committee. This report is about supporting, in principle, clarity of the role of CJCs in relation to the North Wales Economic Ambition Board. The CJCs were established as part of the Local Government Act and will start functioning in North Wales on the 30th of June 2022. We also need to set the budget by January the 31st. Its other core functions will be a strategic development plan for the region and the regional transport plan. The region already has a well-established growth deal through the Economic Ambition Board, and as North Wales leaders, we did raise concerns regarding losing identity and brand, which by now is well established not only in the region but in the whole of Wales and the UK as a whole. Welsh Government have acknowledged this issue and have agreed to develop a framework that allows the Economic Ambition Board to be transferred by way of delegation to the relative executive functions of the CJC as in recommendation 1. And I will ask Gary to update you in more detail on that. We did bring the CJCs to a council workshop for discussion, and it has by now, we do have to accept that this is going to happen because it is in the Act. So it is therefore up to us as a council to make sure that this regional work happens in a positive way for Denbighshire and for the region. We do already, as lead members, work quite intensely on a regional basis on many issues. And in the present climate of moving more to regional work, I will be comfortable moving the recommendation forward. So, but could I ask you, Gary, just to add to that, please, at this stage?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I did circulate a briefing note to members last week in respect to this, but just to recap very quickly, the corporate joint committees exist. They're legal entities. They were created by regulations that were made earlier this year and have been legal entities since the 1st of April. There's an emerging legislative framework around their operation. I think we're up to 7 sets of regulations at the moment, and there are more to come. And there's also been some statutory guidance from the Welsh Government about how they should operate, and there's further statutory guidance to come. As the leader said, they have 3 functions. They have a statutory duty to create a strategic development plan for the region. They also have a duty to approve and prepare a regional transport plan for the region. Those are both duties. They also then have a broad economic well-being power. The membership of the CJCs, as members are aware, is the 6 leaders of the local authorities, plus a representative from the Snowdonia National Park, but the National Park representative is only a member for the purposes of the Strategic Development Plan function. The CJC is to go live with its functions from the 30th of June 2022. Some other CJCs are going earlier. I think some will be in February, but the North Wales one is the 30th of June. So there's a lot of things that need to be done in order that the CJC can be in a position to begin to implement its functions. And the Welsh Government has given a grant of £250,000 to the region for the work to be done in setting up the CJCs, which includes extra project management capacity and external specialist advisors, both legal and others. That work is being led by Gwynedd, but is being overseen by the chief executives and the leaders of the North Wales authorities. So one of the things that needs to be done is to understand what the committee structure of the CJC is going to be. The CJC has power to create subcommittees, and the guidance from Welsh Government is that it should have a subcommittee for each of its functional areas. So there would be a committee for strategic development planning, a committee for regional transport planning, and the question that falls to be considered today is what will be the relationship between the CJC and the North Wales Economic Ambition Board. Just to set out the differences between the two, the CJC is a corporate entity. It's been created by law and has its own legal personality. It can enter into contracts, it can employ people, it can hold land, etc. The North Wales Economic Ambition Board is a statutory joint committee created under the provisions of the Local Government Act 1972. And essentially, that committee doesn't have a separate legal personality of its own. It is a committee of the 6 authorities. So if it wants to do any of those things, such as enter into contracts, hold land, employ people, it has to do that through a host authority. And that then means that you have to have a series of back-to-back legal agreements to ensure that the host position is protected. So external legal advice has been sought on what's the most effective way of dealing with the Economic Ambition Board's role in terms of the growth deal in the context of a CJC. And the idea is to avoid duplication, complicated legal arrangements, etc. And the proposal is that the Economic Ambition Board would be positioned within the structure of the CJC whilst retaining its own identity as the Economic Ambition Board. And the method by which this would be done would be by way of a delegation from the 6 local authorities to the Corporate Joint Committee. The rationale behind this is that you then have the benefits of the Corporate Joint Committee's ability to do things without the necessity for complicated back-to-back legal agreements. It's a more streamlined way of doing it. But if you do it by way of delegation, you retain the control over the Economic Ambition Board in a similar way to the control that's exercised now. So currently, members will recall GA2 governance agreement that was entered into by the 6 local authorities and other partners in respect of the operation of the Economic Ambition Board. And what that agreement does, it sets the parameters within which the Economic Ambition Board can make decisions, but it also sets out those decisions which are reserved back to the local authorities so that only they can make the ultimate decision in respect of some of those big issues. And they relate to things like any departure from the outlined business case for the growth deal and any change to the envelope of funding, etc. If it's possible to have the Economic Ambition Board positioned within the structure of the CJC, but subject to a delegation agreement in similar terms to the GA2, then what you would effectively have is a model whereby you avoid the complicated legalities and extra agreements that have to be entered into by a host, but you retain the control through the delegation agreement. And the reason why this is an in-principle decision is that the legislative framework doesn't at present allow for a local authority to delegate a function to a CJC. So currently, a CJC only has the functions that have been given it by law, by regulation, and the law says that Welsh Government can give it certain functions. They're the 3 functions that it currently has, plus an improving education function, which they've decided at the moment not to give it. Or it has functions which are given to it by regulations because local authorities have gone to government and they've asked for regulations to be made to allow those functions to take place, but you can't delegate them. What's being sought from Welsh Government is the ability to delegate, because if you can delegate, you can then put the Economic Ambition Board within the structure and get the benefit of the CJC model whilst retaining the control that you currently have over the Economic Ambition Board under the existing model. So that's effectively the proposal that's being put forward for an in-principle decision. Clearly, because it's an in-principle decision, it will have to come back to the local authorities to make a final decision once it's been established that the appropriate legal conditions are in place. In terms of the rest of the report that's appended to this report, it sets out some of the other steps that will need to be taken. As the leader said, the CJC will need to set a budget by the end of January next year. It will also need to appoint statutory officers. So they're required by law to have a chief executive, a monitoring officer, and a section 151 officer, but that doesn't mean that they have to appoint people or employ people. It could be that they just nominate someone from within the existing chief execs, monitoring officers, 151 officers to be to undertake that role for the CJC. It will need to have standing orders approved, and it will need to have a business plan of how it's going to operate for the first 12 months. But this in-principle decision will help then to clarify what the structure of the CJC is going to be. There are 2 other committees that the CJC has to have by law. So it has to have a governance and audit committee. So it will have to set one of those up, and it has to have a standards committee, but that standards committee can be an existing standards committee. So it could nominate a standards committee within the region that would carry out that function for the CJC. The other thing that will need to be developed will be the scrutiny arrangements for the CJC. And they can either be by the creation of specific new scrutiny committees, or by the use of the existing scrutiny regime that's in place across the 6 authorities. But further clarity in respect to scrutiny will come with further regulation and guidance. But that's, as I understand it, the intent, that it will be for the region to determine what those scrutiny arrangements should be. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Gary, for that. Are there any questions from Cabinet members? Bobby, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Yes, I don't know about anybody else, but I've listened quite a lot on these now, these CJCs, and the clarifications. you know, this is, it said it's sort of streamlining and improving governance. It's simplifying the way we do things now, but there's so much to read. It's hard to equate it with simplification, but then maybe that's maybe my understanding is not up to scratch. I don't know, but anyway, I'll attempt a question that's not too ridiculous. They've talked about £250,000 to establish and cover the establishment of the CJCs. And they emphasize this is not something that's a money pit. You know, it's establish them and then it'll all fall into place. I appreciate that this is coming into place whether we like it or not. There's an act of parliament, act of the government saying that it will happen. It's already a legal requirement and it will come into action on the 30th of June. But it also, as well as this establishment and talking about the committees that it's going to be responsible for, it says, unlike the other regional bodies, you know, like PSBs or RPBs, it is a separate body, able to employ staff and hold assets. I am just wondering if I've looked through a lot of what both Gary has provided us with, and I've also looked online to try and make myself be a little bit more in understanding of what's happening. But I'm not quite sure of the financial implications of this, both for Wales as a whole and for Denbighshire and the other 6 local authorities, the other 5 local authorities across North Wales. There's 4 of these boards, and I still, after all I've read, don't really understand the financial implications that this may have upon us as a county council.
Okay, thank you, Bobby. I think that was a pretty good question, and it does need clarity on, so I'll look to Gary to provide that clarity now. Diolch, Gary.
Diolch, Arweinydd. I suppose if I just deal with the points that Bobby made in the order that I've noted them. In terms of clarity and simplicity, I think the issue is the CJC exists now, it's a thing, and it will have legal duties from June. And the idea is to try and make the operation of it as simple as possible and as least bureaucratic as possible. So that's one of the aims behind the proposal for the in-principle decision. The second issue in respect of the grant is that the regions were offered a grant by Welsh Government in order to assist them in establishing CJCs, and so the region has accepted that grant, and it will be used for the specialist advice and for the project management capacity needed to set them up. In terms of the financial implications as a whole, I can only comment on the legal positions. Steve may have more information about financial implications, but the legal position is that the CJC must each year determine what its budget will be for the following financial year, and it must agree what contributions are to be made by each of the 6 local authorities. If the CJC does not reach that agreement and set that budget by the end of January in each year, then the Welsh Government has a default power to set the budget for the CJC and to tell the individual local authorities what their contribution will be. In the regulations, it does say that the budget that's to be set by the CJC is effectively the contribution required from the local authorities for the expenses of the CJC that are not otherwise met by other funding sources. And I know that the Section 151 officers will be doing work on this, and in the first year, I'm sure that the CJC will probably be finding its feet. But I'm probably not the best person to talk about the financial implications. I can just tell you what the process is.
Okay, thank you, Gary. That's helpful. Can I ask Steve to come in at this point, please?
Diolch, yes, Prandar, everyone. Yeah, so Section 151s are forming groups now to try and get the budget work done in time. So there's 4 key bits, or three key bits actually, sorry. So there's the corporate democratic core, which is quite straightforward in that, as Gary's referred to, it's the bit of a monitoring officer, bit of a section 151 officer, etc. So there's that element. The two big ones are the planning and transport element. And Gary's right that the 250,000 is just for the setup costs, so that isn't going to cover any of the ongoing implications of this. So there will be a cost to the local authorities, and we would hope that that would be minimised. But you have to understand that it's been tasked. This body has been tasked with a new responsibility, or a couple of new responsibilities, and if it didn't exist, they could still task all us local authorities to do those actions. So the strategic planning document and the transport plan, it's regional planning that we don't do currently. So we're going to have to work out over the coming months actually how much is it going to cost to deliver that. And there's a huge number of different ways that can be delivered. You would hope that the balance would be actually we can do some from within existing resources, but we might need to invest some more money, and that's what we're trying to work out now. I think we probably need to carry on lobbying Welsh Government to, traditionally, if a new responsibility is announced and it comes to a local authority, then funding comes with it, and that comes through the RSG. So you would hope that Welsh Government may include in future years some funding for the delivery of what they want this body to deliver. So the local, the planning plan and the local transport plan. I don't think they will, but that would be the hope, and that's what they would do if it stayed with local authorities. I have a feeling that they won't, and actually this will be a pressure. Now, it's not going to be earth-shattering pressure, but I think I'm talking a pressure that we will have to put in during the next budget, but it'll be tens, 100, 200 grand type sort of pressure. I'm guessing at that figure until we've done the detailed work, and there'll be lots of options around the delivery of those plans and how we deliver them. So we'll be coming back, obviously. There's a decision-making process that Gary can go through as to how we agree that budget. But there's no denying, like the North Wales Economic Ambition Board was a cost, and I think we've all thought that we've got something for that investment. We have no option, so we have to fund this, and we have to deliver the requirements. So it's trying to do it in the most cost-effective way. So there will be a cost. I think it's manageable within our budgets at the moment, but I still think we should lobby Welsh Government for additional funding to carry out these new responsibilities, in summary.
But not only that, Steve, if I can just come back, Leader, not only lobby them on that, but lobby them on a business plan of some sort. Let us see, as well as all the wording and all the legalities, let us see the amount of money that's going to be needed. Not just for the North Wales region, but for all of Wales. What are when we see Chief Executive Officer, Chief Finance Officer, Monitoring Officer, these are all expensive posts, and that's without all the support staff that go with them. And they're talking about holding assets, so presumably that means they're buying somewhere to live, to have their offices or set up. I just feel still unable to understand. I know it's meant to be done to help us all to be more efficient and effective, and all those words that we read in everything we read about it. But I would just like to see in plain old-fashioned black and white what the cost is to us across Wales, and to, in particular, us in Denbighshire at some point. So if you could get that across when you're finding out, when you get in touch with the government, that would be good.
Well, just on the process, obviously the budget has to be set at the end of January. So, that's when we will know. That's when we'll have worked that out for Denbighshire's impact and the impact across North Wales. you know, the 151 officers are working to try and minimise this cost, especially in the first year. And you know, that's one of our tasks now is over the next 2 months is to work with those experts in the two fields that we don't know, so the transport and the planning areas, to actually work out actually how much do they need in that first year in order to start this work. As far as the corporate and democratic core element, it's unlikely that these will be additional posts. They'll be, it's likely that it would be existing people adding to their workload. So, for example, you know, David was the Section 151 officer of the North Wales Economic Ambition Board. Someone will do that role going forward, and that you know, that's up for discussion as to how we do that. But I think it's unlikely that we'll have a whole set of new senior officers to service the committee, certainly in the, you know, the initial stages.
Okay, Gary, did you want to add to that?
No, just I agree with Steve. I'm sure that nobody's proposing that there be a 7th Chief Exec Monitoring Officer, Section 151 officer, and the arrangements for the Economic Ambition Board were that the host authority in that circumstance just provided that resource. In terms of holding land, I don't think that means that the CJC is looking for premises of its own. It just means that when it's engaged in any of the economic well-being activities, some of the projects around developing employment sites and other sites, it would be possible for the CJC to hold that land during the course of that and be able to acquire and dispose of it, rather than having to have separate arrangements between a host authority and other partners. Yeah.
Okay, all right, thank you. I appreciate both of your efforts, and we'll wait and see. I can see there's other questions coming in.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby. I think you're right to raise the financial cost of this, but I think it's when we get to the stage where this is up and running, it's about the region and for us making it value for money, isn't it? That we get a return on the investments, whatever that will be in the short term. As Steve alluded to the Ambition Board, I think we've got a lot more out of that than we put in, but it's been hard work to get that to a good place, and I think we have to make this a positive venture, regardless of the challenge. But I'm sure Julian is waiting to come in when Steve said that, you know, if Welsh Government initiatives provide an extra financial burden to local government, there was an Essex-Jones agreement, which Julian and myself have been fighting in a LLJ or reminding people of, and that's resurrected itself in a way. That's now been heard a lot more than it was in the past. So possibly there will be funding from Welsh Government to help us make this a success, because it's in their interest as much as ours that it works. So we'll see where we go with that. Okay, thank you. Bobby, no, Mark, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'll turn my camera off just in case. So can I just touch on quickly the cost of democracy, if that's okay, leader? So I understand, I've read the document, but it does talk about the background, and I'll go to number 6, where it talks about the timetable remains challenging, including immediate duties, and one of them is the regional strategic development plan. So obviously we all get elected and we have a lead member for the local development plan, and we all have to come to a consensus, and we communicate with our residents, which have been thousands of people, and we come up with an LDP, hopefully in the end. Who signs that off then? Is it the local authority or is it the new regional body? And what happens if there's a conflict? So I understand what they're trying to do, but I do want them to be open about where the power sits. So if anyone can answer that, because to me it feels like the regional body will sign off our LDP, and if there's a conflict, it's not what our people or elected members want. Thank you, leader.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Gary?
The duty for the CJC is to prepare and approve a strategic development plan for the region. That's a different layer plan. It's not the local development plan. Each local authority will still be required to produce its own local development plan. It will be for the local authority to determine its local development plan, but there may be aspects of the strategic development plan that they'll need to take into account when doing that. But the local development plan is still a decision for the local authority. This is a new plan that will be developed regionally by the CJC.
If I can come back on that, just an instance, we have 3,000 houses in our plan, but the regional wants 5,000. How do we deal with that, please?
Well, I'm not a
No, but I just need to understand that I believe, reading the documents, that the power sits with the regional body. I think Graham, our chief exec's touched on this. I just want confirmation of if these split on numbers, numbers are mentioned in both documents.
Mark, can you put the screen off, please? Could you put the screen off, please?
Yeah, yeah. So it's just confirmation of if there is a conflict on numbers, which is in both plans, who has the final say, please?
Okay. Does Graham? I'm not sure if Graham wants to come in on that. Gary.
Well, I'll have a go and I'll have a go answering that. Essentially, the CJC doesn't have a role in setting the local development plan. That's the local development plan for the local authority to determine. If you approve a local development plan, then you have to send it off to an inspector, don't you, for that to be considered. And it would be for the inspector to consider whether or not there was a rationale behind the figures in a local development plan vis-a-vis the figures in a strategic development plan. I think the point is the CJC decides the strategic development plan. It doesn't decide the local development plan. You decide the local development plan. But as ever with a local development plan, you do then have to have regard to certain factors, and then you have to be able to argue your case to an inspector as to whether or not you have had sufficient regard to all of the factors that you're required to consider.
Okay, thanks for that.
Okay, man. Yeah. Okay, any other comments from cabinet members? No, okay. Meirig, please.
Diolch yn fawr unwaith eto. Reit sydyn o, diolch I Gary Williams wrth reswm unwaith eto am drio roi gwybod i ni beth sy'n digwydd. Ac diolch am yr atodiad un sydd yn rhoi mwy o wybodaeth I ni. Rhaid mi gyd-weld hefo y cynghorydd Bobby Feely. Chwaneg o gostau ar y treth dalwyr ydy hyn eto, ond dyna fo, mae'n gyfraith gwlad a fi rhaid I ni blygu i'r drefn mae gen I ofn. Ond o dan 46 ar tudalen 205 yn yr adroddiad, mesur y Gymraeg ac yn y blaen, sut da ni gallu bod yn siŵr yn Sir Ddinbych mae'r Gymraeg fydd flaenaf fel y mae yn Sir Ddinbych ac nid fel rhywbeth I feddwl amdano fo.
Fydd gan yr CJC ddyletswydd ynglyn â'r iaith I penderfynu ar cynllun iaith iddyn nhw eu hunain, a fydd gynnyn nhw y safonau iaith iddyn nhw'n wneud yn siŵr fod nhw'n cwrdd ar safonau. Fydd o fyny i'r CJC penderfynu be fydd y cynllun iaith nhw a sut maen nhw'n cwrdd ar safonau, ond fydd gynnyn nhw ddyletswydd gyfreithiol I wneud yn siŵr fod nhw yn. A penderfyniad y CJC fydd o ynglyn â'i cynllun iaith a'r safonau, ond mae yna rheoliadau di gael I wneud. Mae gynnau'r enw Saesneg o fy mlaen fi. Corporate Joint Committee's Amendment to Schedule 6 to the Welsh Language Wales Measure 2011 Regulations 2021 sydd dwi'n meddwl yn addasu'r mesur I wneud yn siŵr fod yr un ddyletswyddau sydd ar awdurdodau lleol yn cael ei rhoi i'r CJC hefyd. So fydd nhw'n gorfod ystyried y iaith Gymraeg a fydd y safonau yn perthnasol iddyn nhw hefyd.
Diolch yn fawr Gary, os ga I ddod yn ôl jyst am eiliad. Ond wrth reswm, fel da ni'n gweld efo'r cynghorau lleol dros Ogledd Cymru, di pawb ddim yn cydnabod y Gymraeg gynta ac yn rhoi o'n ail ar arwyddion a phob arall. Diolch yn fawr.
Okay, diolch yn hynny, Meirig. Rhys, please.
Diolch, Mr. Cadeirydd. As the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed, I've had to change location and change device, so I presume you can all hear me. Yeah? Okay. I've got one question, one concern, and one rhetorical question. The question first, I've read through this document and I see that a CJC would have to have someone to audit it, a financial officer, a monitoring officer, and a CEO. This has already been mentioned. It's then hinted in this document that officers of the 6 local authorities could do this. With their present workload, really, it's just a question as to whether it's possible to give this amount of work to hard-working officers anyway. Otherwise, as Councillor Feely has mentioned, it is a case of appointing these officers. So that's my question. Do our officers actually have the capacity to do the extra workload? The concern is that, as far as I can see in this document, there are as yet no statutory arrangements for scrutinising. So that's obviously a concern, and I'll be glad to know when we have an answer to that, or maybe it's in the document and I missed it. And the third one, and Leader, you're going to thank me for this rhetorical question. Will there be a Ddinbych at the end of all of this? Thank you, Leader.
Okay, Gary can start, and I might have to answer the last one.
Okay. Well, in terms of the statutory officers, and of course officers to support the meetings of the CJC, we already absorb that within the region in terms of a number of regional bodies. So, for example, we are the host authority for the AOMB. We're neither the host currently for the Economic Ambition Board and for GWE. So similar arrangements, I'm sure, would be brought in respect of this. Clearly, we'll need to understand what the requirement is in terms of the meeting structure and how often they meet, etc., to understand what support they'll need. But we already support regional bodies, and we always find a way of doing that. In terms, and one of the issues around the EAB, of course, is that if it sits within the CJC structure, then there's no duplication of the EAB out here and the CJC over here. In terms of scrutiny, the guidance from government was that it's for the region to develop the scrutiny arrangements that the region would like to see. So currently, for example, with the North Wales Economic Ambition Board, we have an arrangement where the North Wales Economic Ambition Board programme officers will come to scrutiny meetings at the different local authorities and provide update reports. The statutory framework or piece of statutory legislation that will be relevant is, I alluded to I think it's 6 or 7 sets of regulations already. There is just out for consultation regulations, which will be the Corporate Joint Committee General Wales Regulation 2022, and I understand that scrutiny will be in there. And as I understand it, it will give the region the ability to create the scrutiny arrangements it wants. So you can either create scrutiny committees specifically within the CJC structure, or you can use the scrutiny arrangements that you currently have, or you can create a joint scrutiny committee for the scrutiny of the CJC. But scrutiny arrangements they're not being forgotten. They are going to be dealt with, and it will be a scrutiny arrangement designed by the region.
Okay, and in terms of your third concern or comment there, Rhys, this did start off, the starting base for this was a discussion with a minister who wanted to reduce the number of local authorities from 22 to about 10 or 11, and was pretty adamant that that was going to happen. So we batted that off and found a halfway house where we suggested, and I was in those original conversations, about a regional approach to service delivery. And that's what protected the 22 unity authorities. So we've still got 22, but then the risk then of working regional is that we dilute local democracy if we don't get that right. So in the answer to your question, yes, in the long term, there might be something happening beyond our control, but it's up to those who run Welsh government, isn't it, to protect our interests. But it's up to us as well, probably, to be prepared to work in a different way and accept that in the short term, regional working is here to stay. And there are some aspects of regional working where it is better than doing things as 6 authorities, 6 different times. We think of GWE now, which I think is working really well. The Ambition Board, that's working pretty well as well. So there are pluses and minuses, and it's up to us to make sure in the initial stages that the commitment that we show reflects the benefits that we expect to our organisations in the authority. So the answer to your question is yes, in the long term, something else will happen beyond our control. But in the short term, we need to make this work for our residents as local councillors, and which is, for me, the best level of democracy anyway. Diolch, Rhys.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Okay, right, no more questions? No, right, I'll come to the recommendations. 3.1, the Cabinet agrees in principle that the functions of the North Wales Economic Ambition Board be transferred by way of a delegation agreement to the North Wales Corporate Joint Committee on condition A, that the statutory framework that the Welsh Government are developing allows for the delegation of the relevant executive functions to a Corporate Joint Committee. B, that the North Wales Corporate Joint Committee agrees to establishment of a subcommittee with membership to be agreed with the councils to undertake the functions of the Economic Ambition Board. This transition is proposed in order to achieve a streamlined governance model, avoiding duplication. A further detailed report on the framework for implementation will be presented to a subsequent meeting of the Cabinet. And I move those recommendations. Is there a seconder, please? Julian, thank you. Will you raise your hands if you support the recommendation, please? Probably, yeah. Who, Tony? Okay. Who, did you raise your hand?
No.
Are you opposing it?
No. I don't know what's happened there.
Are you supporting it, Who?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, got there in the end. Diolch yn fawr, that's been passed. Thank you. Agenda item 10, redevelopment of the former Prestatyn Library contract award. Tony?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. I'll kick off, and no doubt Julian will assist me. So we're here today to appoint a principal contractor for the redevelopment of the former Prestatyn Library, further to the Cabinet decision which was taken on the 21st of September. So in this development, there's going to be 14 one-bedroom accessible apartments for social rent, all having lift access and for 55 and overs. And there'll also be 2 ground floor commercial units. So these apartments were highly energy efficient and will be right in the heart of Prestatyn. So we've gone through a full tendering process that has been carried out with a scoring matrix at each of the 5 tenders that were received. Basically, it was 70% price, 30% quality. And coming out of that was Wynn Brothers estimates, which at 3,455,000 was considerably under the budget estimate. So we're pleased to recommend them. So I'll pass it over to Julian now, please. Would you like to come in, Julian?
Thank you, Tony. Nothing to add to that, apart from that I fully support the recommendations.
Okay, thank you both for that. Are there any questions from Cabinet members? No, it looks straightforward, doesn't it? Any questions from other members? No. Okay. Tony, can you come to the recommendation, please?
Yes, certainly, Leader. So the recommendation is 3.1, that Cabinet agree to the adoption and implementation of a DCC construction standard for non-domestic new build projects. Sorry, what am I doing the right one?
You're on the wrong agenda.
You're on the wrong one, Tony.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
In the right meeting.
Yeah, let's try again. Here we go. I haven't changed me. Come on. Right, we'll start again, yeah. 3.1, the Cabinet approved the award of a contract to Wynn & Sons Limited Construction as per the contract award recommendation reports in Appendix 1. 3.2, that Cabinet confirms that is read, understood and taken account of the wellbeing impact assessments, Appendix 2, as part of its consideration. And I would move that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second, Chair.
And seconded. Everybody in agreement? Nobody against? Okay, thank you for that. Agenda item 11, finance report. Julian, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Leader. My usual update with regards to the current year's finances. In terms of the overall position, you'll see that the projected overspend has increased slightly from what I was putting forward this time last month to just under 1.35 million. And I'll come to the reason for that in a moment. You'll see at the end of section 4, the last paragraph, and also in Appendix 5 to your report, that we need to formally show the calculation for the council tax base for the next financial year, which is the number of Band D equivalent dwellings in the authority. And you'll see if you go to Appendix 5, which is broken down by individual community area, that the overall figure has increased by some 102 dwellings, I think. We continue to make claims where appropriate from the Welsh Government Hardship Fund. But as we know, that hardship fund will be coming to an end at the end of this financial year. But as I say, we continue to claim what we're eligible for up until then. Appendix 3 in the report gives some context and wording with regards to the variances from service budgets from last report. And you'll see that primarily that upward movement I've just mentioned is down to an increase in residential placement costs within the Education and Children's Services service. One that we always flag up as being quite volatile, and we have little control over who presents. So we're at this moment in time that figure has increased by approximately £180,000. In terms of the major corporate capital plan schemes, you'll see there those listed in Appendix 4 as per usual. The only one probably I need to make a comment upon is the Queen's Market proposal and project. There'll be a further report coming back, I think, in February time for us to let the phase 1 contract. Work at the moment is being carried out to value engineer the costs where appropriate, but I think it's probably fair to say that it is likely that there will be a requirement for some additional funding to be allocated to this scheme. I don't particularly want to, I'm sure members might have questions, but we're not at a stage yet where we're probably able to go into any great detail as to the reasons for that at the moment, because we're still going through that value engineering exercise. But this is just some advance notice to flag up that we potentially will be coming back in the new year in regards to that scheme. All of the other schemes are, as you'll see, either coming to a close or on target and on budget. So I think probably that's all I wanted to say as a very quick introduction. I don't know whether Steve wants to highlight anything or add anything I've missed out.
No, Julian, I think you've covered everything. No, thank you.
Okay, in that case, we'll go to questions later.
Thank you, Julian, for that. Questions from Cabinet members? No? Okay, that's clear. Are there any other questions from members? No, that's clear. Okay. Julian, can you come to the recommendations, please?
I will do. I'm just scrolling up to them here. So the advantages of going on at just past 1 o'clock, aren't there, on the agenda? Recommendation 3.1 is that members note the budget set for 2021-22 and progress against the agreed strategy. And 3.2, the members approve the council tax base for setting the 22-23 budget as detailed in Appendix 5. So I'd move those two.
Okay. Will someone second that? Mark has seconded it. Everybody in agreement? Nobody against? No, okay, thank you. That's been moved. And we come to the last agenda item, which is the Cabinet Forward Work Plan. Gary, please, could you take us through that?
Yes, the work plan is as set out. There's one additional request that I've had to bring a report regarding an extension of the contract with DLL. I'll just need to check with report authors as to the length of the agenda in January, so it will either come in January or February.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Any points members want to raise on the Cabinet Forward Work Plan? No? Okay, well, that's the end of the meeting. This is the last Cabinet of the year. Can I just thank you Cabinet members for your support throughout the year? And can I thank all members for their contribution to the Cabinet debate. It's really helpful when members do test and challenges during the Cabinet conversations. And as we could see today from the Welsh education strategy, that the input from members not on Cabinet is really helpful and adds value to the end results of the Cabinet. So from me, thank you for that. Can I wish you all a happy Christmas and a good new year, and please stay safe and get after those booster jabs. But thank you for everything and see you next year. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh ho ho.